Kim Hyun-woo was trapped in the tutorial tower. And now while all the other newbies were running away in fear from the final boss, he was bored. He had defeated this Balrog hundreds of times already and now just wanted to have a little fun. He slammed the boss into the ground and talked to it, then defeated it with just one leg in a few seconds. He taunted it, asking who the manliest boss around here really was. However, this victory brought Hyun-woo absolutely no satisfaction, because afterwards he returned to the first floor of the tower once again. It all started one day when monsters appeared all over the world, and along with them came the appearance of a massive tutorial tower, a place where humans could gain superpowers and become hunters, but only if they could survive and clear all 100 floors. On average, less than 10% of players could complete it. Hyun-woo was one of the first players to enter the tower. They fought bravely together, and after the final battle ended, our hero's party received the long-awaited notification. The tutorial tower had been conquered. Everyone was overjoyed because this meant they could finally return home. After a long time inside the tower, Kim Hyun-woo wanted to see the blue sky above. But fate had other plans for him. Instead, he was teleported back to the first floor. He was shocked and didn't understand what was happening. Why was he stuck here while everyone else was free? That was when he received a notification stating that he had been cursed by the tower and could not leave it. After a period of denial and anger, Hyun-woo began climbing the tower over and over again. He started exploring possible ways that could help him gain his freedom. He climbed the tower alone from start to finish. Then he climbed the tower 10 times in a row. He even strengthened his body to its limit. But even after completing all of that, nothing worked. He was still trapped. Hyun-woo continued to climb the tower repeatedly, hoping to find a way to break the curse. Time passed, and he spent years in this place, completing it thousands of times. While new players took months to complete the tower, the protagonist could finish it in a day, or even a few hours. Eventually, he became so bored that he tried posing as a child, like an NPC guiding newbies, or like an instructor, or even playing weird games with the final boss, but then that too became boring. So Hyun-woo continued to climb the tower alone, honing all his skills to the absolute limit, to the point where, with just one kick on the first floor, he could literally blow through 10 floors. After 12 long years in the tower, he finally received a system notification. He had broken the loop and could now escape the tower. Laughing out loud like a madman, he rushed forward to clear this technical tower one last time. He shot up like a rocket, crushing the floors in his path. Now he was the true boss of the tower. Even the monsters had to fear him. On the final floor, Hyun-woo destroyed the boss and the entire top floor of the tower, then walked into the final portal that would finally take him outside. He couldn't contain his joy and screamed like crazy. He was finally free. Meanwhile, the authorities observing the tower were utterly shocked when they discovered that a player from the first group, summoned to the tower in 2006, had finally escaped after 12 years. A few weeks later, the protagonist was invited to participate in an evaluation test, intended for new hunters who had just conquered the tower. Among the guild leaders sponsoring the test were his old teammates, those who had conquered the tower with him the first time. All of them were eager to see what kind of monster Hyun-woo had become after 12 years in the tower. In the waiting room for the rank evaluation candidates, everyone was ready with basic equipment. Meanwhile, the protagonist was busy snacking. Once his stomach was full, he wondered what this pile of equipment was. Only then did he realize he hadn't received any because he had overslept earlier, while the others received theirs in the morning. Just then, an announcement rang out requesting the future hunters to leave the waiting room and proceed to the test location. Now at the rank evaluation maze of the Seoul Tutorial Center, David, an A-rank hunter, welcomed all the junior hunters, informing them that the evaluation test had begun and he would be the supervisor. The supervisor reminded them that the whole world was watching them right now. With a smirk, he reassured all the hunters not to worry, because compared to the tutorial tower, this test was very simple. While David stated he was looking forward to seeing the potential of all the hunters since they had risked their lives in the tutorial tower, he added, Hyun-woo was yawning constantly, not listening to a single word. Just then, the supervisor announced that the first test was beginning. At that moment, he touched something on his phone. Immediately, the ground began to shake. Simultaneously, David explained that there were various difficult situations they had to go through as hunters. But one of them was a maze as soon as these words left his mouth. Huge and dangerous metal bars fell from above, stabbing into the ground and forming a real maze. David instructed all the hunters that this maze had many traps. Although this was a movement notification, it would be good if they utilized their full abilities. Immediately after, a 30-second countdown began, signaling that the test would start as soon as the clock hit 0. The hunters had to use their abilities and escape to the maze's exit. The moment the countdown ended, all the hunters rushed toward the entrance. The supervisor watching this smiled. Since all the hunters this time were very obedient and looking at their figures, the thought of his own first rank exam came to mind. He pondered on the most important thing, which was that hunters must maintain their initial resolve. At that moment, the hero was still standing at the starting point, left behind while the others rushed forward. He called out to the supervisor, addressing him casually as "Old man." and confirmed whether he really had to get to the exit by any means necessary. Hearing this, David frowned, judging the guy for his pathetic appearance, and wondering where his provided equipment was. When he noticed Hyun-woo yawning, he was startled. Was this how a newbie behaved? At this point, David began to doubt whether this guy was taking the test seriously. Curious, the supervisor asked the protagonist if he found these hunter tests trivial. Sneering and emphasizing the word old man, Hyun-woo suggested the supervisor act like that in front of those noisy guys who were using all their willpower to run over there. These words infuriated David, but the hero grinned and proposed a bet with him. He would finish this whole thing within 20 seconds, and if he did, he would get 100,000 won. David was stunned by these words, but having a huge ego, he agreed, confessing that his daily wage and overtime pay as a supervisor was 1 million won. Rushing toward the entrance, the hero warned David not to change his mind later. Now in front of the entrance wall, Hyun-woo placed his hand on it. Shocked to think that the supervisor received such a generous salary, he focused all his energy into his arm. Everyone, including David, and Korea's top guild leaders watching the test from the observation screens, wondered what the protagonist was doing near the wall. Before they could comprehend it, the protagonist punched the wall. The intensity was so strong that it literally created a hole through the entire maze, and smoke covered the entire place. Within seconds, as the smoke cleared, the protagonist was standing at the exit on the opposite side. It was clearly a forcibly created exit, but he had indeed confirmed with the supervisor that they had to reach the exit at any cost. Everyone went crazy witnessing this. They were more surprised by his rank evaluation results. Korea's top guild leaders were amazed but also slightly annoyed by the guy's stubbornness. In contrast, Hyun-woo was on cloud 9 because he had won 1 million won, but his face twisted in panic when he looked back and saw the destruction he caused. He wondered if the authorities would demand compensation. 24 hours before the hunter ranking evaluation competition. At the Live Hunter's office, Jun Sung confirmed the list of candidates participating in the test. Although his colleague wondered if they could expect anything from this test, Sung immediately understood he was referring to the rumors about the advanced player. However, finding information about him was quite difficult. Besides the protagonist, a reserve hunter trained in the world of traditional martial arts would also be coming. Since it wasn't confirmed whether the advanced player would come or not, they had this traditional martial artist, Kang Hyun, as a backup plan. Kang Hyun was a guy with many abilities and skills, so luck was always on his side. With his weapon, he easily took down deadly creatures. From the beginning, Kang Hyun received too much attention and respect because he was always successful. But that was what he thought, until he met Hyun-woo. This guy met the hero when he was clearing the tutorial tower one last time to escape this godforsaken place. Although Kang was able to return safely, he understood how pathetic he was, because the protagonist was so wild that he shoved aside anyone in his way, including Kang Hyun, because he was so desperate to get out. Back to the present, the first test was successful for Kang. Now, everyone was asked to return to the waiting room and stay there until further notice. At the same time, in the observation room, all the viewers were curious because they wanted to see how the protagonist had actually destroyed the place. The authorities were quite annoyed because they also wanted to see a clear picture. But whenever they captured a clear shot, it was always of Lee Kang-hyun. In the waiting area, all the hunters were discussing the current situation. Rumors had spread that it was done by the advanced player. Kang-hyun was also sitting here, aware that the test was not over yet. He still had a chance to see Hyun-woo's performance, although he swore to himself he wouldn't lose to the protagonist, who was literally so sleepy it felt like he was on drugs or something. An announcement rang out in the waiting area stating that the order of events for today's ranking competition had changed. The competition would restart in 15 minutes, and all participants were advised to prepare for the next round. Now, the evaluation event included a monster wave, using virtual training monsters created by combining spirit stones from monsters and the latest technology. The goal was to evaluate how many monsters the junior hunters defeated within a given time. It was true that Kang was a very skilled hunter, as he was very focused on taking down the monsters. Infusing lightning into his weapon, he attacked the creatures, defeating them easily. All the observers were shocked to see this, because this guy had just escaped the tower, yet already possessed magical abilities. They all realized that a genius was among them, and it was all unrealistic. Not stopping for a moment, this martial artist continuously used a series of electric currents and defeated all the monsters in his way. When the time ended, it was announced that Kang had killed 78 monsters. This was the highest score a candidate had achieved so far. Having said that, Kang smiled proudly. While others were impressed with his combat skills and magic, believing he deserved the reputation as a top candidate, everyone believed that even before this, he would have taken first place if the advanced player hadn't pulled that stunt. Now it was the protagonist's turn to face the monster wave. Yawning, Hyun-woo said how tired he was of all this, but clearly he had no other choice. The top guild leader, Seo Kwan-han, suggested the other two guild leaders come and watch this, as he wanted to see how Hyunwoo's fighting style had developed. Upon entering the test venue, Hyunwoo was given 120 seconds and the test began right now. A 10-second countdown started before the test took place. The moment the countdown ended, the giant beast raised its hammer-like weapon to attack the protagonist. Unflinching, Hyunwoo remained in place and instantly used his powerful fist to take down the monster. Everyone's jaw dropped after witnessing this scene. The authorities confirmed if the cameramen caught it because it was truly cinematic footage. Seeing this, the other deadly creatures got angry and rushed towards the protagonist, roaring and screaming. However, they stood no chance of harming even a single hair on the hero's body, as he took them all down with the exact same technique as before. Now 56 seconds remained, but to everyone's surprise, the advanced player disappeared while the monsters' heads exploded on their own. All observers wondered if this was a spell or something, although Seo Kwan thought it wasn't a spell or anything, because if they looked closely, they could see the shadow of a person moving as fast as the speed of light around the monsters. Hyunwoo simply ran up to the monster, punched it, and defeated it. Just like that, he found a new target and repeated the same action. The protagonist didn't use any high-level skills, but moved so fast that it looked as if the monsters were exploding on their own. Seo Yeon Lee was amazed, wondering if such movements were possible without augmentation, while Shihun Kim was confused about what the protagonist had done in the tower. Whenever Shihun heard any rumors, he always ignored them, but seeing it with his own eyes made them all realize that Hyunwoo had become a true monster. After 120 seconds, the announcer stammered. But once he announced that Hyunwoo had killed 248 monsters, this news spread like wildfire. It was literally trending everywhere. Some questioned if the video was real, while others marveled at it. A few couldn't hide their jealousy. In short, social media turned into a complete mess. Seeing all the tweets and posts, Kang actually snapped his phone in half. Furious, he punched the wall with such force that cracks immediately spread everywhere. He bitterly said that he had worked so hard and even forced himself to hunt even when others were lazy. Moreover, he stole others' kills knowing they would hate him. He had literally used all cheap tricks and put in so much effort. Therefore, he couldn't swallow the fact that Hyunwoo was famous worldwide. Moving forward, Alice, who worked as the information section chief of the Korean Hunter Association, met the protagonist. She gave him a list of guilds that wanted to meet him. Along with that, Alice congratulated the protagonist for escaping the tower after 12 years. Additionally, she explained to the hero that many things had changed since the tower first appeared. Explaining in more detail, she informed him that monsters originating from mazes and dungeons were terrifying, but high risks came with high rewards. And because hunter guilds were interested in recruiting talented hunters, they would be rewarded with huge prizes. At the same time, Hyunwoo wasn't listening to a word, internally thinking about what to eat for his next meal. Alice didn't know this and assumed the protagonist was confused. However, the protagonist asked her if explaining all this was part of her job. Giving him a warm smile, Alice confessed that she came here for personal reasons. She wanted to meet the advanced player everyone was talking about. Also, she wanted to share the Aries Guild contracts regarding member rights and duties, the revised version. She suggested the protagonist read the contract clause regarding the signing bonus. Confused, Hyunwoo read the first clause, which stated that once both parties signed the membership agreement, the member would receive a huge sum. Sweat poured down the protagonist's face as he glanced at Alice. Meanwhile, the woman asked the guy how it felt to hold a contract worth 10 billion won. Hyunwoo looked at Alice with uncertainty, wondering since when their currency value had plummeted, and if the country was experiencing hyperinflation like Zimbabwe. Just then, Alice explained that things were quite messy due to the monsters. But there were no financial problems, although land prices had increased. She informed him that the price of the place he used to live had also changed. Immediately after, she gave him the details. Hyunwoo's eyes widened in surprise as the value of his home increased from 3 million won to 1.3 billion won. His nauseous expression made Alice realize that this guy was worried about his finances. Therefore, she reassured him not to worry about all that, as 10 billion won was just the signing bonus. The information officer mentioned that the Aries Guild agreed to pay him double the current signing bonus, only if he renewed with them at the end of this contract. Feeling it was unbelievable, the hero's face turned pale. Meanwhile, Alice continued explaining that he would share the loot obtained in the maze with the guild. However, he would understand that the split ratio was in his favor. Grinning, Hyunwoo confirmed with Alice if guild contracts were also part of her role as an information officer. Alice admitted that she had some personal connections, and the recruiter from Aries Guild insisted she share this with Hyunwoo. However, deep down, the protagonist recalled that offering contracts to those still managed by the association was illegal. Right at that moment, Alice intended to reassure him to take his time deciding, but Hyunwoo interrupted her, clarifying that he had decided and never intended to join any guild, because he knew that no guild interested him. At first, the information officer thought the protagonist was joking, but Hyunwoo was very clear that he didn't want to be tied down by a guild or its activities. He was well aware that this 10 billion won wouldn't be given to him to play with, as this world operated on the rule of reciprocity. Obviously, upon receiving the signing bonus, he would be assigned tons of work. Now lying in bed, Hyun-woo chuckled after finishing his snacks. He liked living like this and doing things by his own rules and way. While relaxing, he recalled the scene where Alice asked if he wasn't interested in becoming a hunter. Hyun-woo explained that he had heard about hunters who worked alone. Hearing this, the information officer realized he was talking about freelancers. Although she revealed that those people already had experience working in guilds, and for an inexperienced hunter to venture alone into a maze was impossible. With a proud look, Hyun-woo began to leave, assuring her that he would make it happen. Calling him arrogant, Alice told him to remember to contact her after changing his mind. Back in reality, Hyun-woo thought meeting Alice was a waste of time. He could have used that time to get some really good sleep. All those thoughts annoyed him so much that now he couldn't sleep. So Hyun-woo looked through the list of guilds that wanted to meet him. The protagonist found it a waste of time. But then he was shocked to see the names of Korea's top 3 guild leaders on that list. 5 days later, on the last day of the protection period for new hunters, the protagonist met Seo-kwan, Seo-yeon, and Shihun at a Japanese restaurant in the Mokdong neighborhood. It had been too long, so the hero was too surprised to see them all grown up. While Seo-kwan gave off the vibe of a mature man to him, the high school nerd Shihun had turned into a handsome guy. On the other hand, Seo-yeon had also changed completely. Looking at Seo-yeon, the protagonist recalled that she was the one who cowered behind his back all the way to the 50th floor. The time Seo-yeon wet her pants upon seeing a banshee, however, the girl activated beast mode, warning the protagonist not to say another word. Enjoying the sushi, Hyun-woo admitted it was great to meet them. Also, he really enjoyed the taste of this food. Seeing this, Shihun reminded him of the time they defeated the merman on the 17th floor, and Hyun-woo had rambled on about how much he missed eating sushi. Now the protagonist remembered it all. That was when the protagonist went berserk. The 3 of them explained that whenever those urban legends about him leaked out, they were happy he was alive. Unaware of all that, Hyun-woo asked for details. So they explained that the protagonist had become a celebrity, and whatever he did in the tower was mentioned on TV. Upon receiving this information, sweat poured down Hyun-woo's face in embarrassment. As he realized his role plays had been exposed in front of everyone, the protagonist wondered which specific one made it to TV. He just hoped it wasn't the time he cleared a dungeon while naked, or when he cleared a dungeon while pretending to be a golem. Although the guildmasters informed him that the most famous incidents were when he went around defeating bosses while doing a weird dance and crushing 10 floors with just one kick. While Hyun-woo felt somewhat relieved hearing this, Sehyeon was genuinely curious about what his friend had done inside the tower. Hyun-woo recalled the scene of dancing in front of a boss monster. Even the monster stood there dumbfounded, but our guy just wanted to try doing that to escape that place. Also, when it came to breaking through 10 floors, he was so frustrated that he simply jumped as high as he could, and that was how he ended up there. Seo-yeon admitted that watching him at the evaluation made her realize how much strength he had gained, and after hearing these stories directly from him, there was no longer any doubt. However, Hyun-woo believed that anyone could do it because once someone is trapped in a place, they will do anything to get out of there. Though, the hero then realized that his student must have escaped as well. True, he didn't know which generation they belonged to, but it was when he was between the 50th and 60th floors. Someone had been left behind in the tower. When Hyun-woo sensed a presence, he searched around and found a kid with his role-playing skills. He decided to guide that lost soul. At that specific time, Hyun-woo was obsessed with the concept of martial arts, so he took the kid under his wing and trained him. At first, Seo-kwan was confused, so the protagonist explained that he was talking about when someone gets trapped somewhere but becomes enlightened and escapes, like things in comics and novels. Hyun-woo thought that if he became enlightened, perhaps he could escape. As a result, he actually trained the kid and pushed all his limits. The protagonist forced him to train, and then mocked and ridiculed him when he stopped. He often told the guy to focus his mind on his Dantian to unleash his internal energy. However, the only thing Hyun-woo knew was brute strength, so thinking back now, he felt bad for the guy. Hyun-woo didn't reveal it, but back then he was truly a jerk, so he was relieved he had worn a mask the entire time, as he didn't want to accidentally run into that guy again. Immediately after, the hero asked the 3 top guild leaders how the world had been for the past 12 years. Hearing the question, everyone fell silent. Back at his accommodation, Hyun-woo checked his status window. Noticing his age was listed as 24 instead of 36 made him realize that he had truly lost 12 years in this world. Now that it was done, it couldn't be changed, so our guy decided to earn a decent amount of money and live happily without regrets. Though his eyes skimmed over the floating message about the infinite loop being removed, curious, Hyun-woo tapped on that option. Right at that moment, he received a notification that he had to defeat at least 3 dungeon bosses to meet the minimum requirements to advance to the next level. The dungeon conquest targets included Aderon's laboratory, Forest Village, and the marsh. Before Hyun-woo could understand what on earth was going on, he heard a knock on the door. When he opened the door, the security guard greeted our guy, informing him that some recruiters from the Aries Guild had arrived to see him. Uninterested, the hero refused the guard, but with a worried look, the guard asked him to come along. Since the recruiter had instructed the poor man to bring Hyun-woo, it was quite clear that these guys wouldn't stop until Hyun-woo told them off clearly. So he went to the lounge on the first floor, as that was where they were waiting. Byung-ho Kang, the HR manager of the Aries Guild, greeted our guy, but instead of beating around the bush, the protagonist reminded him that he had been very clear about having no intention of joining any guild. However, the Aries Guild HR manager challenged Hyun-woo on whether he really believed he would be a successful hunter without the guild. Byung-ho tried to tempt him by reminding him of all the things he would get upon joining the guild. Unafraid, the hero suggested the manager not threaten him. The bodyguard standing behind Byung-ho got angry at such an arrogant attitude, but Byung-ho quickly stopped him before he could react, suggesting Hyun-woo not do anything reckless, as he didn't know who the Aries Guild was. Sneering, our guy admitted they were a bunch of jerks who had swallowed up half of Korea. Right at that moment, Hyun-woo recalled the meeting with Korea's top 3 guild leaders. They had informed our guy that the Aries Guild monopolized over 66% of the country's dungeons. Among them were A-rank dungeons ideal for grinding and D-rank dungeons friendly to newbies. They heard those places were backed by foreign capital with a lot of money to spend. Additionally, for newbies to gain experience and experts to earn money, they had to buy expensive entry tickets or become Aries members. Basically, this guild was squeezing everyone because they knew the people here didn't have many choices. His train of thought was interrupted when the bodyguard slammed his hand onto the table. The intensity was so strong that bright energy covered the room. At that point, Byung-ho warned our guy not to get cocky just because they were in the association's residence and told him to think very carefully about the offer. The bald bodyguard, who had slammed his hand on the table, punched the wall hard again, while the HR manager made Hyun-woo understand that he needed to grasp the situation, as this bodyguard's overall stats were enough to make him an A-rank hunter. Therefore, he suggested the hero shouldn't make any hasty decisions, because he would surely die in front of this guy. Sighing with a smirk and standing up, our guy held up his slipper and dared the bald guy to come over, because he was ready to smack some sense into that bald head. This insult enraged the giant, and he rushed forward, but he was slammed into the wall within seconds, unable to move. Witnessing this scene, Byung-ho recalled that they had actually planned a script to threaten our guy and demoralize him enough to sign the contract, but everything had gone off the rails. Standing there, the HR manager was shocked because Hyun-woo couldn't even use magic, yet still possessed unrivaled strength. With a sly smile, our guy approached and cornered Byung-ho. Right then, with his torn slipper, he slapped the bully, making it clear that he hated those who threatened him. That night at Shihyun's house, Hyun-woo recounted everything. Although the guildmaster was impressed, he was also slightly surprised because these Aries guys were ruthless and no one dared to mess with them. Shihyun informed the protagonist that they sent threats to stop him from joining other guilds. Also, they could silence him inside a maze. While eating strawberries, Hyun-woo wondered what being silenced meant. Shihyun clarified that they would kill him. The hero found that brutal. Therefore, the guildmaster suggested he join his guild considering what was happening. However, Hyun-woo still didn't agree to join any guild. Although it was true he wanted to take it easy, currently he had some things to take care of, so he decided to put that off for a while. Plus, with a smile, he asked Shihyun if he had happened to hear about Aderon's laboratory. For the past 12 years, it remained a mystery why Hyun-woo was the one left behind for 12 years. He had so many questions: who created this tower, who locked him up, and many other things. Therefore, his goal was to find out the tower's secrets and the person who locked him there, because once he found them, he would make them suffer. On the other hand, Shihyun wondered why Hyun-woo was interested in Aderon's laboratory so suddenly. Shihyun revealed that Aderon's laboratory was a C-rank dungeon located in Uijeongbu. Plus, he also heard that it was a good place for new hunters to develop their strength. Curious, Shihyun demanded to know the reason behind this interrogation, but our guy didn't reveal the whole truth, confessing that he had some business there. Even so, Shihyun warned him beforehand that he might not be allowed in, because the Aries Guild was abusing their monopoly rights over dungeons, and Aderon was one of those dungeons. Receiving this information, Hyun-woo became too frustrated with these thugs. Why were there no laws to stop the monopoly? The guildmaster reminded the hero that the government didn't have time for all that, as hunters didn't hold real voting rights. Only a small number of people had conquered the tutorial tower to become hunters. Dungeons were so dangerous that even the police couldn't investigate properly, often treating deaths occurring there as accidents. Hyun-woo found it all bullshit, but on the surface. Aries was the leader of a rising industry, contributing a decent amount of taxes, and any situation involving hunters was too sensitive for outside forces to intervene. At this point, the protagonist decided to sneak in, and if there was heavy security, he would confront them head-on. Shihyun warned him that if he did something stupid, Aries would become his enemy. But it was too late to think about all that, as our guy had already made his attitude clear to the HR manager of that trash guild. Elsewhere, Seonu Hook, an S-rank hunter and the director of the Aries Guild's Korean branch, was discussing the guild's expansion. In China, it would take at least 5 months. In Russia, it would take 8 months. And for Japan, it was 7 months. Seonu didn't care if it was time-consuming, as the important thing was that they were always one step ahead of the crowd. Just like when a monster is killing, you don't need to be faster than the dungeon boss. Just faster than the person next to you. Having said that, the manager's man handed him Hyunwoo's stat levels. They had used motion footage of our guy in the tutorial area to make an estimate of his level, using experimental analysis equipment, and Byung-ho, the head of the Aries Guild's HR department, explained that he was also skeptical, but the department's analysis showed the margin of error was not more than 1 rank. Saying that, Seonu asked if they had recruited this guy yet, but seeing the hesitation on his subordinate's face, he understood that they had failed at that. Right then, he declared that they were better off without that guy. He admitted that it was a guy with great ability, and they would make a lot of profit with Hyunwoo's presence, but that guy would aim for their positions. So they should forget about recruiting him and instead teach him some rules of conduct. Just then, a man ran toward Byung-ho, panting, informing him that there was an emergency situation at Aderon Laboratory. In Uijeongbu, Mount Xianbo, at the entrance to Aderon's laboratory, a C-rank dungeon. A girl was begging the guys guarding the place to let her in. But these thugs suggested she go to the mazes, as those places had low-level monsters. Initially, the thugs claimed they were sticklers for rules, but then they started getting touchy-feely. At that moment, our guy approached them. The thugs warned him to leave, informing him this was not a place to kill time, because this place had genuinely terrifying monsters. Approaching the thugs, our guy told them that this was exactly why he was here. He had business to attend to inside this dungeon. The Aries Guild thug called our hero crazy for daring to call him an idiot. Hyunwoo quietly picked up his slipper to teach these players a lesson for being too rude. Smiling, he walked closer to one of them. The man exploded with anger and tried to tell him that he belonged to the Aries Guild. However, our protagonist didn't care about any guild. He held the slipper and with just a simple strike, the man flew and stuck to the wall. Seeing his accomplice knocked unconscious, the remaining fighter began to panic. Our protagonist demanded the other guy's shoes. The man was confused and Hyunwoo threatened to smack some sense into him, so the man, trembling with fear, complied. Immediately after the protagonist put on the new shoes, he was surprised at how light the metal shoes were. The Aries Guild player cried over losing his expensive shoes made with magic. However, our generous hero, after seeing the man barefoot, gave him his slippers and walked out. Our hero stepped through the gate, leaving the Aries thugs crying. Meanwhile, Seo-yeon yelled at Shihyun for letting the protagonist just leave like that. But Shihyun explained that he had no other choice because Hyunwoo just casually walked away. She began to panic, worried about the ruthless Aries Guild. Shihyun explained he had told the hero about that, but he just went, and no one could really stop him. Seo-yeon was speechless and asked Shihyun if our hero had really made an enemy of the Aries Guild. From what the hero had said, Shihyun was certain of this hostility. Shihyun didn't think Hyunwoo was the type to get into trouble just sitting still. However, once he became someone's enemy, as long as the hostility remained, Hyunwoo's twisted side would reveal itself. Shihyun didn't understand how things had become so complicated. But he assured Seo-yeon that she didn't need to worry about our hero, because as they were talking about the Aries Guild, Hyunwoo's ranking had popped up. However, Seo-yeon was dumbfounded when Shihyun told her about the hero's ranking. Meanwhile, our hero continued his journey through the dungeon, and suddenly a monster began searching for its research materials. The C-rank dungeon boss Aderon continued to look for more test subjects. Some fighters observed him from a distance, talking about the rumor that people didn't make much money fighting Aderon, which was why the Aries Guild didn't bother fighting him. The fighters started thinking about whether they should really fight the boss. Since they had gotten in by paying a bribe, one of them suggested fighting him. However, the girl wondered if their abilities could match the laboratory boss. As usually, people fought in guilds. The other man added that he noticed Aderon had high defense and low attack power, so he suggested taking time to defeat the boss. With a possible strategy, the group decided to go. They united to fight the boss, but also made it clear they would escape as soon as there was danger. Just then, they saw our hero walk in to face Aderon. Hyunwoo stood before the laboratory boss fearlessly. Aderon started laughing, thinking about where to start on his test subject, and decided to ask our hero instead. 12 years ago, when our hero was young, his cousin told him not to cause trouble and advised him to listen to the teacher. He had abandoned little Hyunwoo at the orphanage after his parents' death in an accident and stole his inheritance. Perhaps because of his disappointment in people, Hyunwoo was fine until someone tried to manipulate him. Once someone became an enemy, he would reveal his nastiest side and hold a grudge for a long time. Aderon started playing with his needle, laughing about where to start. He asked our hero where he should begin, but Hyunwoo ordered him to stop. The laboratory boss was shocked to see a mere human ordering him around. But then our hero punched the monster. Leaving the group of people behind shocked, the monster fell and our hero walked out like a boss. With the Aderon laboratory mission complete, the hero continued heading to the forest village. The group of hunters watching from behind realized Hyun-woo was the advanced player, and seeing him in the flesh like that gave them goosebumps. Meanwhile, at the Aries Guild's Korean branch, the HR manager visited the manager of the Korean Management Division, Woo Chun-myung. He handed a file to Chun-myung and asked if the branch director, Seonu-hook, had given any instructions. The manager read the file, and seeing 2 A-rank stats in a rookie hunter's file made him wonder if the stats were accurate. The HR manager replied that the results weren't completely accurate and it was just a provisional analysis. Even so, Chun-myung couldn't help but be impressed by the hero's monster-like stats. The HR manager told the manager that the orders were to only hurt Hyun-woo moderately, but doing more wouldn't be a problem either. The manager knew those extra instructions were the HR manager's desire. But the HR manager explained how our hero jumped into their exclusive dungeon and attacked the hunters guarding the dungeon at that time. Soon, Myung reassured his colleague that the hero wouldn't be able to put a scratch on their guild. However, he wanted to handle things quietly because the branch director already had a lot to deal with due to their advancement into China. On top of that, even the management supported these actions due to the Tyrant Guild. The new Tyrant Guild in China had monopolized 52% of all dungeons in China within 2 years of its establishment. Just 4 years after coming out of the tower, their guildmaster had grown Tyrant into a massive guild, and every leader was known to be monstrously strong. The most surprising thing was the identity of the Tyrant Guildmaster, who was officially listed as 5th in the S-Rank world rankings, remained a mystery to the public. Chun-myung assured the HR manager not to worry about Hyun-woo. He added that since they had to deal with the Tyrant Guild, they didn't have manpower to waste, so they would send experts to inflict some moderate damage on him. Meanwhile, Hyun-woo checked his phone's camera and was impressed by the world's technological developments. Then he took a picture of his friend and started playing with the phone. Shihyun was annoyed to see the hero playing with the phone he gave him for communication. But then he told the hero that the forest village was managed by the Soul Guild. Our hero continued playing with the phone without paying attention to his friend until he mentioned that there were no monsters in the forest village. Shihyun explained that they had defeated the monster there not long ago. He explained that things here were different from the tutorial tower. At the tower, bosses or normal monsters would respawn daily. However, in dungeons, normal monsters appeared endlessly regardless of how many times they were killed. But once a boss monster was killed, it took some time to respawn. The hero was shocked to learn that it would take a month for the forest village boss to respawn. But then Shihyun added that they had defeated the boss 4 weeks ago, so it would only take another 2 to 3 days. Hyun-woo then asked about the Visible Marsh, and Shihyun replied that he didn't know much about that dungeon as it was controlled by the Aries Guild. The hero felt frustrated having to worry about so many things just to kill a monster. Then Shihyun asked the hero when he would register at the Hunter Association. At first, Hyun-woo didn't pay attention to it. But then he jumped for joy when Shihyun explained all the perks, including money. He suddenly jumped up when he heard that he could get paid just by registering, but Shihyun explained that he needed to do something for 2 to 3 months. He added that B ranks received over 1 million, A ranks received 2.5 million, and then there was a huge gap between A rank and S rank. After hearing that Shihyun received 7 million per month, the hero was shocked and rushed to register immediately. The next morning, the hero arrived at the evaluation center of the Hunter Association to register. When he said his name, the receptionist recognized him as the one who had been stuck in the tower for 12 years. He remembered everyone who came to ask about the hero. However, the receptionist thought there was nothing special about the protagonist, and people were just making a fuss for no reason. After checking everything, he pointed Hyun-woo to the appraisal eye. Hyun-woo's ranking status would appear on the hologram next to the eye, revealing his hunter rank. He placed his hand on the eye. The receptionist estimated that he could reach B+ rank at most. However, his jaw dropped when the rank was revealed. Seeing his pale face, the hero turned towards the hologram and was shocked himself. Suddenly, the receptionist's scream echoed throughout the building. Shortly after, the hero became a hot topic on the news, talking about his unbelievable evaluation results. They talked about all the A scores and the fact that no one in the world had those scores. Reading the news on his phone, Hyun-woo was surprised to see news of his evaluation spreading in just a few hours. Jihyun explained that advanced players were a hot topic, and since he had turned things upside down at the Aries Guild dungeon, people already had their eyes on them. Shihyun knew the hero didn't care about any of that, but he knew that the Aries Guild had gathered information and wouldn't let him be after causing trouble in their territory. He advised the hero to be careful, worried that the enemy wouldn't stop pursuing him, but he refused to listen. Suddenly, Hyun-woo burst out laughing. When he saw the lock screen image on his phone, he laughed about the ridiculous pose and the halo effect on the hunter's photo. But then Shihyun replied calmly that the hunter in the photo was him. Suddenly, an awkward silence covered the room. Then the hero asked his friend why he always hung out with him when their other friends were always busy. Shihyun replied that he was also busy, but he deliberately made time in his schedule to hang out with the hero. Meanwhile, at the basement of the Aries Guild's management branch, the HR manager's face turned pale. When he saw the hero's evaluation results, Chun Myung now understood why the branch director wanted them to deal with the hero, but seeing the HR manager's pale face, he assured him that Hyun-woo would be handled by the Xinjiang Guild. The HR manager's face lit up after hearing the news that a hunter about to reach S rank in China would take care of his rival. And now he felt confident that his problem would be solved. Meanwhile, at the forest village, the hero was confused not to see any guards at the dungeon. Shihyun revealed that the dungeon was owned by his guild. As the clock struck 12, the boss was about to appear, and the hero and his friends proceeded inside. However, as they entered, another man continued watching them from a distance. At the Forest Village dungeon, a new guy, Park Ga-moon, joined our hero. Shihyun explained that Park was here to pick up loot which could be sold for money. Hyun-woo was surprised to learn that loot is exchanged for money. But the surprise turned into shock when he discovered items were worth 20 to 35 million. Our hero couldn't understand what use these loot items had for people. Shihyun knew he wouldn't understand, but explained that loot items were used to craft armor or weapons. Park began recording the protagonist's adventure and asked for permission. Although Hyun-woo didn't see an issue with it, he asked the purpose of the recording. Hyun-woo was surprised to see videos used to earn money through ad revenue, and decided to cooperate for an 8-2 split. The hunters continued their journey, and Shihyun handed his friend a piece of paper. He explained to the protagonist that the dungeon was like a maze, and finding the way out would become a problem. Hyun-woo looked at the map marked with various spots, then threw it away, confusing his friend. Our hero approached the giant tree and told Park to take his picture. He approached the tree and threw a powerful punch at it, leaving Park and Shihyun in disbelief. The ground was immediately cleared of obstacles, revealing the dungeon boss, the two-headed ogre. Park, still recording, was dumbfounded with shock, unable to believe that our hero just created a path with a single hit. He followed Hyun-woo in excitement after seeing that power. Hyun-woo ran toward the giant ogre and jumped up. Landing on the monster's shoulder, he punched the ogre in the face, taking it down with just one swing. The protagonist stood on the fallen corpse of the dungeon boss, and Park continued recording, crying tears of joy because his video was going to go viral. However, Shin Chun-gong continued to watch our hero. Meanwhile, at the Aries Guild management office, Shin Chun-gong visited Chun Myung to report on his mission. He told the manager about the hero's overwhelming physical strength, without even using any skills or magic power. Shin Chun-gong admitted that he was impressed by the hero's power, but just with a glance he had figured out how to deal with him. Chun Myung informed his thug that Hyun-woo was going to the Aries Guild's Manifestation Marsh dungeon, and Shin Chun-gong saw it as the perfect opportunity to prepare a welcome for the hero. Meanwhile, the hero stood outside the entrance to the Manifestation Marsh. However, he felt something was off and wondered if he was overthinking it. Just then, Seo Yeon texted him warning about the Aries Guild. However, the protagonist couldn't understand why his friends were so worried since he didn't care about the Aries Guild. Seo Yeon worriedly asked Hyun-woo why he went to the Aries Guild's exclusive dungeon. He replied that he had some business, and she asked for more details. However, the protagonist didn't plan to tell her right away. Seo Yeon asked if he was deliberately picking a fight with the Aries Guild, and Hyun-woo answered yes. Worried for her friend, Seo Yeon became upset, knowing she was worrying for nothing. Knowing his stats and watching the video of him raiding the dungeon, it was clear that Hyun-woo could take care of himself. Even so, Seo Yeon advised the hero to avoid Aries people and take care of business quickly. The Manifestation Marsh was an A-rank dungeon, and Seo Yeon thought that the Aries Guild would come to the dungeon on the day the boss monster appeared to clear the dungeon. The hero appreciated the advice and assured his friend not to worry about him. However, now standing outside the Manifestation Marsh dungeon, he once again faced Aries people. The Aries hunter confronted Hyun-woo and threatened him not to make Aries an enemy. The protagonist recalled Seo Yeon telling him to stay away from these people. But with them constantly bothering him, it was impossible to do so. He scolded these thugs for being all the same. They always looked down on him and got beaten up every time. Then when they realized the trouble they were in, they just brought up the guild name and started struggling. The hunter got angry and rushed to attack the hero with his sword, but he simply took the man down with ease and walked through the entrance. Hyun-woo stepped through the gate, and the monster awakened. He continued walking through the dungeon, and the monster moved towards him. Finally, the protagonist faced the dungeon boss, the giant crocodile. The hero recalled Seo Yeon's lecture about the crocodile's tough skin, its magic resistance, and how expensive its skin and teeth were, then started smiling. Hyun-woo immediately attacked the giant crocodile and took it down. He proceeded to tear the monster apart, but the crocodile ran away. However, the hero refused to let the crocodile escape and grabbed its tail. He decided to teach the boss monster a lesson in spinning, and began spinning it around, then threw it into the wall. The giant crocodile got angry and faced the hero again. Shin Chun-gong observed the battle, The crocodile leaped up, and just as the hero prepared for the final showdown, chains suddenly wrapped around his legs. With Hyunwoo bound by chains, the crocodile opened its jaws wide, and Shin Chun-gong awaited his death. However, just as the crocodile rushed in close, Hyunwoo ducked, and the crocodile jumped into the swamp. The hero looked down at the chains in confusion. And then Shin Chun-gong spoke up, saying they were magic chains and the perfect tool to deal with him. Hyunwoo was confused to see a strange guy. The assassin jumped down to introduce himself, and told the hero that he was sent by the Aries Guild to dispose of him. Now the hero understood he was facing an assassin. Shin Chun-gong praised the hero's strength in throwing the crocodile or taking down the ogre with a single hit. However, he couldn't understand why his opponent was so calm after being caught in magic chains. Hyunwoo was confused, not knowing what this chain did. But then he realized he couldn't move at all. Shin Chun-gong stated that they were magic chains, and the hero needed mana to escape them. However, he needed mana stronger than an A-rank person to break them. But since the protagonist had only recently come out of the tower, he had no mana. Even then, Hyunwoo was confused, not seeing the problem. Shin Chun-gong became frustrated, thinking the hero was just trying to trick him. He thought that, like everyone else, Hyunwoo was also just pretending to be calm and planning his next move. The protagonist was still perplexed because he wasn't doing any of that. The assassin drew his sword, ready to attack the hero. Just as he slashed with the sword, the hero raised his hand, blocking the attack. Shin Chun-gong unleashed a poison blast. An explosion rang out and smoke covered the air. The assassin thought he had finished the job, but he was shocked when the smoke cleared and Hyunwoo sat there unharmed. The hero didn't know what his opponent had done. The assassin was dumbfounded, not understanding why his attack didn't work. Right then, the hero started moving, and the assassin took a punch to the face. Shin Chun-gong was sent flying into a tree. Hyunwoo walked up to him and said that he should have wrapped his whole body tightly in chains to stop him from moving. The assassin couldn't understand how his opponent did this. The hero knew that Shin Chun-gong must be confused, and told him that the chains had become loose and stopped working properly. He kicked the tree and lifted it up while the assassin was stuck to it. The hero told his opponent that he should be prepared to die if he intended to kill him. The giant crocodile floated peacefully through the swamp, and suddenly, Shin Chun-gong fell on top of it. Hyunwoo threw the tree into the swamp, killing the crocodile as well. He stood quietly by the swamp. Suddenly a system screen popped up, informing the hero that he had proven himself and the lowest level information would be available to him now. Meanwhile, at the Aries Guild Management Division, Miryong was informed that his assassin was dead. The assistant informed him that the tree Shin Chun-gong was stuck to had sunk into the swamp, and although they couldn't confirm, it was likely he was dead. Miryong thought that the monster must have eaten his assassin. However, he had 2 S-rank stats and 7 skills. Seeing his talented assassin killed easily by the hero annoyed Miryong. Hyunwoo lay in his apartment and tried to sleep. Suddenly, he woke up recalling the information window. The system screen revealed that the hero had been invited as a temporary guardian in the system. He was confused, feeling something had changed, but he didn't know what all the stuff on the screen meant. Hyunwoo thought that he would be able to get information about the tower, but he didn't know what the system inviting him meant. He noticed the time was 9:50 and the invitation had arrived around 2 p.m. Just then, Shi-hyun entered the apartment and the hero told him to stay there. He opened the information window to test his new skill. After a bit of concentration, Shi-hyun's information window appeared. However, Hyunwoo couldn't see any stats because of his lowest level authority. He cursed in anger seeing his useless skill, confusing Shi-hyun. But then the hero covered it up, saying he was just muttering to himself. The protagonist stared at the clock on his phone. As it neared 12 midnight, the hero thought that the useless skill must have brought some change to him. He thought that he would be able to find information about things like the tower after receiving the system invitation. Just then, the clock turned to 12, and the room went dark. Hyunwoo suddenly found himself teleported to another space, and when he looked ahead, he saw a girl sitting at a desk in front of him. The girl called the Hero Guardian and revealed that she was his assistant Eve. Eve introduced herself and told the Guardian that she would be seeing him as long as he was alive. Hyunwoo's mood brightened up, realizing he finally had someone to talk to, and he could finally know why he was stuck in the tower for 12 years. The two stared at each other in silence, and then the hero spoke up, asking the assistant if she was going to explain everything. Eve was confused about what she needed to explain. The hero shouted angrily, asking if she had invited him here to explain. However, Eve calmly told him that she could only answer him. Realizing that the assistant could only answer his questions, the hero was shocked. Then he proceeded to ask questions and started by asking who locked him in the tutorial tower. Eve replied that she couldn't tell him that because he had the lowest level information authority. She told him that she could only answer him if he had higher level information authority. The hero's anger rose, realizing that was what his information window kept saying too. Annoyed, Hyunwoo asked the assistant if she could tell him who locked him in the tower once he had higher level information. However, Eve answered him that she couldn't tell him that because of his lowest level authority. Then he demanded to know what the tutorial tower was, but Eve again replied that she couldn't tell him. Then he asked why the tutorial tower was created but got the same answer. The protagonist asked why monsters appeared and still got the same answer. Tired of getting no answers, his anger started rising and he knuckle-rubbed Eve's head. He started shouting at her for inviting him here for no reason. Anne started laughing, thinking that she just wanted to prank him. Eve spoke up, saying she didn't tell him anything because he had the lowest level information authority. And Hyunwoo's anger increased even more. But then Eve told him that she could tell him one thing. She added that he was a guardian, and guardian referred to a protector. This answer still wasn't enough for the protagonist, and he asked if she could give him something more important. The assistant replied that she could tell him about the things a guardian had to do from now on. Hyunwoo was disappointed that she didn't tell him about things he was curious about. But then Eve told him that he was a temporary guardian, and if he officially became a guardian, he would be able to find out all the details even if he didn't want to. The protagonist was curious about what he needed to do to officially become a guardian. Eve replied that in his area, a rift would open in 5 days. In the deepest part of that place, he would find a key that could upgrade his information authority. By obtaining that key, the hero would become a true guardian. After conveying the message, Eve upgraded Hyunwoo's skill and sent him back to his world. He stood in his apartment, staring at the system window telling him to get the key. So the protagonist decided to see it through and become an official guardian to get the information he wanted. Meanwhile, the hero's friends were shocked to hear about the rift. They looked at each other awkwardly and asked him why he was suddenly asking about it. Hyunwoo was confused, seeing everyone's reaction. And then Sehun revealed that the rift was a major disaster. Meanwhile, at the Aries Guild headquarters, Seonuhook was furious. Realizing that the best hunter in the management division was defeated by Hyunwoo, Chunmyung stood there quietly feeling ashamed. Seonu assured him that he didn't blame him and ordered him to gather people and crush the hero if there was a way to do it. He gave him some money and ordered him to hire some mercenaries stronger than the one he sent before. Seonuhook made it very clear to his HR manager what he wanted. He understood the orders. And Seonu decided to focus on the Tyrant Guild next. The Tyrant Guild in China continued beating up Aries members in a separate building. Realizing things were not going according to his plan, Seonu's anger continued to rise. Meanwhile, the protagonist's eyes lit up with excitement when he saw the ring worth 2 billion. Wanhyung explained that things like this appearing in mazes were common. Hyunwoo was confused about the difference between a maze and a dungeon. His friend explained that artifacts were found in mazes. And the ring was also an artifact. Special resources or loot-like spirit stones were found in dungeons after monsters died. But in a treasure complex, artifacts with good functions were found. Wanhyung told his friend that the ring was enchanted. The hero was surprised by the game-like function as he realized that these objects were better than normal equipment. He observed the ring. And a system screen popped up giving him information about the ring. The system told the hero that he could read the item description using his special skill. He decided to give it a try, and an information panel popped up. However, the entire description was obscured because he had the lowest level authority. The hero was annoyed by the trashy and useless skill, but he decided to visit the maze after his main mission. He returned the ring to Wanhyung after confirming its price and focused on the menu. The protagonist read the menu and decided to order it all. His friends were shocked, thinking he wouldn't be able to eat it all. But Wanhyung told him to order whatever he wanted. Just then, Hyunwoo asked his friend what a rift was, shocking everyone again. While eating, the protagonist learned that a rift meant the ground would suddenly crack open and countless monsters would rise up. Seo Yeon explained that countries like China and Germany had experienced rifts and called them hellgates. Thinking about how Eve mentioned it casually, Hyunwoo thought it was just a normal thing. However, now he wondered what would happen if such a thing happened in Korea. The group fell into deep thought. Sehun answered that although they could stop it, even the lowest C-rank rift would leave the area completely desolate. Everyone knew their guild, along with some others, would help, but the Aries Guild would only send a few weaklings and pretend to help. The protagonist told his friends to eat plenty and relax for the next 4 days. When they asked what he meant, all he said was that they would find out soon enough. Meanwhile, at the airport, according to reports, people noticed the ground shaking. Thinking it was an earthquake, everyone rushed to leave, and suddenly the ground cracked. Meanwhile, a man in a cloak walked up to his master to announce that the 9th floor had awakened. The master asked about our protagonist, but the man replied that he hadn't awakened yet. However, he added that it wouldn't be long and the hero would receive an official title. The master found the timing perfect and looked forward to seeing what the hero could do. At Gimpo International Airport, the entire ground shook, and people ran away in panic. Flames engulfed the area as news reports issued emergency evacuation orders for residents within a 5-kilometer radius. The airport was put on emergency lockdown, and hunters from the association continuously joined to support. Countless monsters continued to climb through the rift, and the situation was getting worse. With the airport locked down, hunters had to face the monsters. The rookies trembled as they saw ferocious giant monsters surrounding them. The captains told them to have courage, otherwise they would die. He rushed in with a binding skill and protected his teammate from being attacked, then slashed the monster to death with his sword. The rookie started to thank him, but the captain told him to focus on fighting right now. The hunters faced the monsters, but seeing the overwhelming numbers, they started cursing. The captain continued slashing through the monsters, but he knew that they would just continue to surround him even more. Monsters continued to flood through the airport, and the hunters needed to do something. Suddenly something caught the hunters' attention, and when they turned around, they saw a giant skeleton. The hunters started shaking with fear upon seeing the A+ rank monster. They gave up fighting, knowing that death was inevitable. The skeleton raised its giant club. The fighter faced it with his shield. The skeleton smashed against the shield, but the hunter couldn't block it and was knocked flying into a car. The giant skeleton walked toward the injured hunter. The captain shouted for his soldier to wake up, but he didn't respond. Suddenly, the skeleton's head was smashed to pieces as our hero jumped through the monster and landed in the crowd. All the hunters were stunned. They noticed his outfit and realized it was none other than the famous advanced player, Kim Hyun-woo. The hero received a notification stating that he needed to obtain a key located deep within the rift at Gimpo Airport to prove himself, and the time remaining was 22 minutes and 32 seconds. Now he had to explore deep inside the airport. Meanwhile, the bystanders were shocked to witness how the hero took down the skeleton in just one blow. Immediately after, he warned those people about the monster behind them. Since the number of monsters was huge, he decided to intervene quickly and help a little, even though reinforcements were coming. The hero lifted the giant hammer the skeleton had used earlier with ease and threw it towards those monsters, crushing them. Those nearby were amazed by his sheer strength. They excitedly realized that with the advanced player's help, they had hope and could hold out a little longer until reinforcements arrived. But to their surprise, the hero ran away, leaving the others behind because he was in a hurry. Their jaws dropped seeing their hope run away, but they had no other choice. They decided to give it their all just to hold on a bit longer. One of them helplessly wondered about Hyun-woo's actions. Everything was getting out of hand as there was no end to the number of monsters, and they were all exhausted. It had been a long time since they fought more monsters than they could handle. The fear of losing those inside drove them, and they were trying to manage until reinforcements arrived. Just then, Kim Shi-hun, from the Seoul Guild along with his guild members, stepped in slicing through the monster. Seconds later, Lee Seo-yeon appeared along with her Hwarang Guild members, and hope returned with the appearance of Han Seok-wan from the Go-Guryo Guild along with his allies. Seo-yeon asked about the hero. The man mentioned that he went ahead and informed her that he was already inside the core of the rift. The battle began and everyone picked up the pace at Seok-wan's command. The monsters flew in to attack, but it was useless against the powerful warriors. Shi-hun was impressively wiping out monsters inside out. While Seo-yeon was helping reduce their numbers using the power of lightning, everyone was doing their best to take down those demons. Meanwhile, the hero finally found his way to the rift's core by clearing the monsters in his way. There was a deep cave that he decided to enter first. Surprisingly, there was a path to the surface for the monsters to climb up to the ground. The hero racked his brain thinking of a way to get down there. But suddenly he noticed a car stuck nearby, and he used the car door as a shield as well as a weapon to rush into the cave. He flew down destroying those monsters, and finally found the way to the bottom of the rift. He landed on the pile of monster corpses he had thrown away after killing them. Immediately after, a massive red monster stepped out of the shadows, with the key on it. Hyun-woo understood that was the key he needed to get his hands on, and confidently rushed at it, but ended up getting hit. He was shocked trying to understand the situation that just happened to him. He received another powerful blow. The hero somehow managed to dodge. It slammed him into the ground, but the monster rushed in again, cursing Hyun-woo in its own language. It blocked both punches from the hero, and threw him backward instead. It was clear that this monster was stronger than the hero thought, and it was very different from the previous monsters. That made the hero decide to use the martial arts skill he hadn't used in a while and never wanted to use again. Hyun-woo recalled the memory when he was trapped in the tutorial tower, lying helplessly thinking about the enlightenment through which one could escape. He desperately rushed at the monsters and tried his best. This was how he started practicing martial arts. This was something one might see on TV, movies, and novels, but it meant nothing because according to the hero, the important thing was thinking that he would be the greatest if he became a master and achieved enlightenment. At first, he followed whatever clumsy technique he knew, all of which were useless, until one day he used a useless technique and the accumulated stats turned what he did into something real. After being trapped in the tower and completing it hundreds of times, the dark past he didn't want to use again. He used the instant finish punch technique and, with full force, he punched that giant red monster into the ground. Hyun-woo was glad no one was around because he was embarrassed by his habit of shouting the names of the techniques he used. The system confirmed his success in capturing the Red Devil Archer and the changes made in his status window. He was also formally invited to become a member of the system as a guardian, and he only had one day to accept this offer. Just then, he noticed a drone flying overhead, actually broadcasting his battle live. The Aries Guild members watched his battle, and the branch director remained skeptical, insisting that the hero didn't look like an A rank. Even after watching his battle, it was clear he didn't look like one. The manager declared that he was just a useless punk with no magic, who always wore his stupid tracksuit. He asked Manager Wu to release all the data he had asked to collect as soon as it was ready. The next day at the Korean Hunter Association branch, an award ceremony was taking place for the hunters who fought the monsters at the rift. The hero stood tall with confidence, while everyone criticized his bad attitude. The host presented the award to Hunter Kim Hyun-woo, and mocked his tracksuit, mentioning that he had suggested giving him some clothes. In response, the protagonist calmly advised not to worry about it. People teased his overconfidence, and the host stood there fuming. Seconds later, Hyun-woo took the gift and ran away without hesitation, making them even angrier. At the outskirts of China's capital, Beijing, stood the castle of the supreme ruler of the Tyrant Guild. A mysterious girl with a skull tattoo on her back was watching Hyun-woo fight. Her eyes widened seeing him do that, and asked for his name from her assistant. The assistant mentioned his name, and the girl immediately advised her to investigate all his past information. Then a man informed the mysterious girl about the conquest of the Weon Guild, that they had succeeded in taking over all the major dungeons in the south. He further explained that one of their executives had been kidnapped, and suspicion fell on the Aries Guild since they had friction with them before. The girl didn't like that their executive was defeated by mediocrities like Aries, and mentioned that there would be no place for them if they didn't come back here on their own. She ordered to speed up the occupation because their struggle just to take over a mediocre dungeon was annoying her. Later, Hyun-woo's friends informed him that he had become famous. He noticed the headlines on the news were terrible, and mentioned how these reporters hadn't changed even after 12 years. But his friends insisted that the reporters had to do so because of the way he walked out after receiving the award and his stupid tracksuit. Shortly after, the hero mentioned he had an appointment and left. Seo-yeon worried about him as he had made too many enemies. They discussed his conflict with Aries in the media, even though it hadn't been long since he came out of the tower. But one of them insisted not to worry about the hero as he was a stronger individual. Meanwhile, the hero accepted the earlier invitation from the system and teleported somewhere. His assistant, Eve, sent greetings before sitting right in front of him. Hyun-woo asked her if his information authority had increased. She informed him that it had increased from the lowest level to low level. The hero flared up with anger and shouted at her, but she was actually providing information she had been taught. The gray-haired girl calmed him down and announced that since he was officially a guardian, he could achieve what he wanted just by completing quests. Basically, he had been assigned to stop the climbers from climbing the tower. The hero mistook this tower for the tutorial tower. But she explained that this one was different, consisting of 12 floors which included Earth. He had to protect the 9th floor from the 12th floor, which was Earth. The hero was wondering about his life and cried about being tired from working constantly. Eve begged him to protect her dwelling, otherwise it would be destroyed, causing him to yell at her for forcing the outcome. Eve shook her head, trying to relax him, saying that wasn't what she meant, then concluded that she never told him to shut up. Hyun-woo's face went blank as he looked up at the sky, asking what she wanted him to do, and told her to speak properly. Eve looked down, thinking about how she was the system administrator of the 9th floor, so she had to be scary enough to have a say. She called his name nervously, then was confused when he called her name back. She finished by telling him not to be too angry because she wasn't. The reason he was chosen as a guardian was for his benefit, and it was to help him. Then tried to bribe him, telling him there were rewards, because stopping more climbers would count as his contribution, which would yield rewards. Hyun-woo stared at her, then asked her in simple terms that if he wanted to know who locked him in the tower after creating the tutorial tower, how much information authority he had to acquire. Eve replied that he needed to have high-level information authority for that kind of information. Hyun-woo asked again if he killed those climbers on their journey, would it increase his rank? After a nod of confirmation from Eve, he asked the number of climbers he had to kill to do so. Eve appeared hesitant, saying it would be hard to know since even climbers had ranks. So roughly it would take 5 high-rank climbers, and that would be enough to help him gain high-level information authority. Hyun-woo demanded more information, like what rank the Red Devil archer he killed was. Eve replied it was a low-rank climber. Hyun-woo nodded, roughly understanding everything. Hyun-woo sat in his house, staring at his status, thinking Earth being a tower was totally absurd, or him saving Earth was ridiculous too. He decided not to waste his time and brain cells on these complex situations. Instead, he would focus on one thing, which was finding the one who locked him here, so he would even crush those climbers to know that. Just then, a call from Seo-yeon interrupted him. She anxiously told him to turn on the TV. When he turned on the TV, Hyun-woo saw his name all over the news, stating that public opinion of him had changed as Kim Hyun-woo, who played a major role in the Rift Crisis, had killed a member of the Aries Guild following a series of related incidents. Hyun-woo laughed at the news, asking what this new drama was about. Hyun-woo lay in his house in the Mokdong neighborhood. His phone was ringing like crazy. Seo-yeon shouted, demanding an explanation as to who could have caused all this. She called Hyun-woo a celebrity just because he walked out of the tower after 12 years. She listed that just a few days ago he had single-handedly cleared the rift, making all countries watch him, and now he was being accused of murder. She expressed her worry, saying she had been feeling anxious ever since he told her about his problems with Aries. Hyun-woo rolled his eyes, telling her to relax and not worry. This only upset Seo-yeon more, telling him to stop telling her not to worry. Hyun-woo realized this feeling was strangely like being scolded by a wife, which was weird since he didn't remember having a girlfriend, let alone a wife. He turned to Seo-yeon and spoke bluntly, telling her she must have a crush on him, and if his assumption was correct, she should be honest and confess. Hearing this, Seo-yeon slowly inhaled and exhaled, then smiled scarily, confirming that she would roast him with lightning if he ever dared to think of joking like that again. He laughed awkwardly, trying to lighten the mood, thinking it was better to drop the subject before he said something worse. Jihoon stood up and showed him all the missed calls from the Hunter Association, expressing that this was the first time he had seen so many missed calls. Then he showed him the status board, showing Hyun-woo in the first place again. Jihoon began reading an article stating that Kim Hyun-woo, along with his 3 guild masters, had similar murderous tendencies, making Jihoon's eyes turn red with anger. Hyun-woo tried to stop Jihoon from making scary faces at him, but Jihoon replied that he was shocked by Hyun-woo's lack of concern when all their reputations were being ruined. Hyun-woo asked if Seokwan had arranged the reporters for him yet, leaving Seo-yeon and Jihoon shocked with worry, seriously asking if he was prepared. Hyun-woo seemed amused that they thought he would go to a press conference unprepared. Seo-yeon advised him not to hit reporters or accept that he would destroy the Aries Guild. Hyun-woo looked at them and asked if that was really what they thought of him. Meanwhile, the leader of the Aries Guild asked about the current situation with Kim Hyun-woo. The HR manager informed him that Hyun-woo's face was all over the news and social media, successfully changing public opinion and ensuring things didn't favor Hyun-woo in any way. The leader thought about how he needed to be one step ahead to eliminate him completely. The guildmaster thought about how something he found hard to believe was possible was done by Kim Hyun-woo, but in the end, it worked in their favor and turned into a huge disadvantage for him. At the press conference in Mokdong, Hyun-woo sat confidently. As reporters began asking questions whether the recent news was true or the reason behind his attack on the Aries Guild member, Hyun-woo let out a sigh, stating clearly that this was his first press conference, so he would just do what he thought was right, then ordered one of the reporters to ask the first question. The reporter asked Hyun-woo how he felt right now. He nonchalantly replied that it felt like crap. When another reporter asked bluntly if he really killed the Aries member, he nodded, telling them to judge him however they wanted, but first to listen to the recording. He claimed he didn't know the reason behind all this, but he remembered rejecting the Aries Guild's recruitment offer. He played the voice recording, where the deceased confessed that he was an assassin sent by the Aries Guild to kill him. After a fierce battle, Hyun-woo stopped the recording right before the incident occurred, and left the reporters speechless. He calmly informed them that he knew they were tipped off by the Aries Guild itself. He explained that he had gone there to defeat the boss monster, and the member simply followed him. A reporter accused him of fabricating the recording, but Hyun-woo pulled another phone from his pocket, saying it belonged to the man he killed in the swamp. He added that he couldn't open it because it was locked, but if he handed it over to a security company or the police, the truth would eventually come out. Then he added to his verdict that he had no other choice since the assassin was there to kill him. Since he was just a newbie fresh out of the tower, he did what he knew best, which was self-defense. However, the assassin sent to kill him got entangled with the dungeon's boss monster, the giant crocodile, leading to his death. The reporter shouted, accusing him that he just confessed to killing him. Hyun-woo calmly replied that it could be seen that way because he let his guard down while fighting him, and he died. He also shared how the Aries Guild had its own reputation, which was why he didn't say anything, but he didn't know things would escalate to this level. The press conference ended, leaving Hyun-woo thinking about how complicated all this had become. And then he checked the new articles reporting on Aries and their fabricated lies. The leader of the Aries Guild threw things in a rage, cursing Hyun-woo for pulling such a move during the press conference. Then he started laughing, calling him an idiot, someone who knew nothing about how this world worked, promising himself that he would handle him one way or another. Finally, the friends following Hyun-woo and Shihyun asked how he came up with the idea of recording, as it seemed like he knew what was going to happen beforehand. Seo-yeon added how surprised she was when Hyun-woo pulled out the dead assassin's phone, making all her worries pointless now. Hyun-woo smiled and confessed that he lied about having the assassin's phone. The three of them stared at him, asking why he lied at the press conference. He took out the phone and showed them, saying it didn't belong to the assassin but to Shihyun, who changed phones frequently. Then he informed them that he took their advice since they always told him how dangerous Aries was, so he made that recording but didn't know that it would actually be useful someday. Seo-yeon couldn't help but worry, asking what would happen if they actually asked for the phone. Hyun-woo countered by saying that it was Aries they were talking about, so before the security team, the guys from Aries would check it no matter what. so he just made sure they knew not to mess with him again. Seo Yeon started chuckling lightly, saying that Hyunwoo suddenly looked cool with her worries. The Aries Guild, with its headquarters in the US and mazes all over the world, known for its Korean branch holding the highest number of dungeons. He started waiting and thinking about Aries' next move, because they had a lot to lose if he dragged them into this. Late that night, Hyunwoo told Shihyun to leave, saying that he was going for a walk alone. Shihyun believed he was capable of taking care of himself and enjoyed wandering in his own way. It only took a few minutes before Hyunwoo found himself surrounded by cloaked members of the Aries Guild. He added that he was waiting for them. The masked man ordered him to follow them. Hyunwoo realized it might be the higher-ups of Aries looking for him and asked what would happen if he said no. The masked man replied that they would drag him away. Hyunwoo smiled, successfully provoking them, as they all started attacking him one by one. He just stood there smiling, but no attack touched his body. The masked men tried again, but found themselves locked tightly around Hyunwoo. Hyunwoo stood still as the masked men started struggling, confused as to why their attacks had no effect on him. Hyunwoo moved his head, hitting each one with a precise strike, until the last man started begging him to spare his life. Hyunwoo nodded, sparing his life, but ordered the man to take him to whoever was looking for him. In the outskirts of Gwangjo province, similar masked men chatted while guarding the underground bunker. One of them pointed out that their guild loved wasting money on building such things. The other quickly told him not to be ungrateful, reminding him that these shelters were keeping them, killer hunters, alive under their protection. Their conversation shifted to another partner of theirs, bringing in a big name today, Hyunwoo. The first man replied that he had seen Hyunwoo's face plastered all over the media, and joked that they needed nothing more than to drag him here and beat him to a pulp. The man next to him added that perhaps they would get to use the new torture devices on him. A loud crash interrupted. They saw Hyunwoo standing still, dragging the defeated masked men, and asked if this was the place to be, after lots of punches and kicks thrown at the loudmouths outside the bunker. The leader finally appeared and caught Hyunwoo's attention, asking what the noise was about. Other masked men got into position in front of the elevator, raising their guard. Hyunwoo calmly walked in, questioning how much the building and this whole setup cost them. The man in the suit stepped forward, demanding to know his name and the reason he was there. Hyunwoo sneered and replied that he was the Grim Reaper sent to send them to the afterlife. In an unidentified cell, the pink-haired girl sat beaten, surrounded by men. The leader of the Aries Guild pointed out that she should think about her life. Start telling them the answers, as the Pato Guild seemed to have abandoned her. He tried once again to force her to reveal their weaknesses and extract information, but she just smiled. The leader ordered his men to take her back and beat her more. One of the men stepped forward, replying that they could kill her today, but the leader shrugged coldly and said he didn't care about that. Just then, the door burst open and Hyunwoo walked in. He looked around for the person who invited him, and then looked at the tightly bound girl. He wore a sad expression as he called out, accusing them of being busy with other guests after summoning him. The leader asked about his team. Hyunwoo replied that they were all napping in the back, just like the men inside the building. Hyunwoo gave the guy two choices: talk to him or get beaten to a pulp. The Aries leader ran out of the bunker, looking at the men lying on the ground and panicking. Another masked man tried to sneak attack Hyunwoo, but he caught him and kicked him away. The man groaned in pain as the leader looked around. Hyunwoo stared, pointing out that he only visited because he was invited, yet everyone was so hostile towards him, adding that it was starting to piss him off. The leader stared at him, thinking about how the men here were all B rank, and on top of that, all the killer hunters sent to capture Hyunwoo were on their way to becoming A rank hunters. While those guarding the bunker were A rank hunters, he realized that he already knew Hyunwoo was strong. But upon hearing the news of Hyunwoo clearing the rift alone, he assumed it was probably beginner's luck that helped him defeat a low-level boss. In reality, Hyunwoo was an S-rank hunter. Not only that, but a high-tier S-rank hunter. He started calculating his chances of defeating him in a fight with his mid-tier S-rank equipment, but Hyunwoo interrupted his thoughts, ordering him to hurry up and choose between the two options he gave. The leader's mind snapped and started running towards Hyunwoo while cursing him, but then came to his senses after taking a deep breath, and decided they would talk instead. They sat opposite each other at a round table. The leader reflected on the fact that he still had things to learn about other guilds, and until he figured out Hyunwoo's exact capabilities, it was best to handle the situation cautiously. Hyunwoo blinked at him, demanding compensation. The leader looked at him with a dumbfounded expression. Hyunwoo added that he wanted compensation for all the trouble caused by the Aries Guild, listing them sending assassins to kill him. Then the news channels blabbering about his alleged murder while they used the media to scare him. Hyunwoo added that he wasn't going to forget these incidents. The leader asked what he wanted, and Hyunwoo replied with a smile, demanding 10 billion won, along with a couple of their low-rank dungeons. The leader snapped out of his shock and slammed his hand on the table, calling those demands ridiculous. Hyunwoo argued that they were perfectly reasonable since they were the ones who went crazy on him. The leader cursed him in his head while calculating that he could manage 10 billion won. but asking for 2 dungeons meant he wanted to take over their assets and new hunters. Hyunwoo added another 5,001 for the leader's slow response. The leader calmed down and tried a softer approach. He said that if this was the amount Hyunwoo wanted, then their contract could offer him much more than that, and asked why he rejected them in the first place. He continued if Hyunwoo joined the Aries Guild today, all his needs would be met, every request fulfilled, because working together for mutual benefit was better than making an enemy of a famous guild. Hyunwoo laughed at his attempt to change the subject, and pointed out how the guild acted high and mighty, but engaged in such lowly behavior, like the pink-haired girl tied up over there, ending by stating that he simply wasn't interested in their proposal. The leader gritted his teeth, admiring his confidence. Hyunwoo stood up, giving him 10 seconds to decide whether the leader agreed to compensate, or Hyunwoo would kill him right there. Shihun heard the clicking of the door, assumed Hyunwoo had finally returned, and welcomed him. He looked up from his phone to look at his friend, only to see Hyunwoo carrying a pink-haired girl on his back. He was startled and demanded an explanation. Hyunwoo noticed his surroundings and realized the place was the 9th floor. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Hyunwoo, who was standing next to Shihun. In front of them was an unconscious woman, plus Hyunwoo had received a huge reward, $11 million, and rights to 4 D-rank dungeons, and the woman is part of his compensation. Shihun wondered how the hero managed to take all of this from Seonu-hook, a man known for his greed and desire for control, which our guy explained in his calm manner that Seonu had no other choice if he wanted to survive. Still curious, Shihun glanced at the unconscious woman and wondered why Hyunwoo brought her along. Hyunwoo replied that she was a hostage and there was something private he wanted to confirm from her. Hearing this, Shihun found the reason slightly unusual, but chose not to ask further. After a brief silence, Shihun remembered that dungeon bosses were scheduled to respawn today. Since he needed to clear them, he prepared to leave, assuring the hero he would handle it. The protagonist told him to take care. When Hyunwoo was left alone, his eyes fell on the tattoo on the woman's body. The pattern felt strangely familiar, reminding him of a mask he once carved. Carrying words of emptiness and self-abandonment, the similarity unsettled the hero, making him wonder if it was truly a coincidence. Then he checked her info tab, and learned her name was Hong Lin, a young woman poisoned and resting. Nothing else stood out, but the strange connection still bothered him. He decided to wait for her to wake up before seeking answers. Hyunwoo stood still as a system alert suddenly popped up, stating that a new climber had begun moving through the 9th floor. Before he could react, another message appeared, inviting him as a guardian, and warning that he would be teleported in 5 seconds. In a moment, our hero appeared in front of Eve, who had summoned him urgently. Then Eve told him that an important person was on the way, the next climber. Our guy tried to find out who it was and when they would arrive, but Eve couldn't reveal more because Hyunwoo's authority level was too low. Frustrated by the repetitive notifications and lack of answers, Hyunwoo lost his patience and attacked Eve. Eve insisted she wasn't hiding anything, and she called the hero just to warn about something more serious approaching. Furthermore, Eve explained that this climber would be far stronger than anyone Hyunwoo had ever faced, and he needed to prepare before they arrived. The most critical step, Eve told him, was to awaken his magical skills as soon as possible. Otherwise, he could be in grave danger. Our guy wondered if the climber was high rank, but Eve denied it, saying if such an entity appeared, it would bring total destruction. Even so, she explained that without magic, Hyunwoo would struggle to fight even mid-rank climbers. Hearing this, the hero tried to ask where the climber would appear and if another rift would open, but Eve hesitated and admitted she couldn't reveal that information, and explained that the form and nature of a climber depended on their power and achievements. Feeling disappointed with the answers, Hyunwoo summarized the situation in annoyance, realizing that he knew very little and had to face whatever came alone. In a fit of anger, he took it out on Eve, who protested that he shouldn't hit someone weaker and questioned his upbringing. Her emotional outburst turned into guilt when the protagonist admitted his parents died in a car accident when he was young. Shocked, Eve immediately apologized and felt ashamed of what she said. Hyunwoo brushed it off, saying it was nothing to worry about. Observing his reaction, Eve softened and started thinking that, despite his harsh temper, the protagonist might not be such a bad person. At the Hwarang Guild mansion in Gwangjin-gu, chaos filled the room as Kim Hyunwoo shouted in frustration. He sat inside a glowing magic circle and became angry because nothing seemed to work, because the circle, meant to help him sense mana, showed no effect, and he started thinking it was a scam. Hearing all this, Hanaran panicked and warned him not to break it since the circle cost 5 trillion won. Our guy stopped but remained skeptical and started wondering if he might simply be someone born without mana. Hanaran, a magician, insisted that it was nearly impossible, and admitted she had never seen a case like his, where even with her help and a mana-gathering circle, someone couldn't unlock their energy after so much effort. Midway through, Shihun walked in and noticed the atmosphere, and realized that even after 4 days, the protagonist hadn't managed to awaken his mana yet. The hero immediately assumed Shihun came to mock him, but Shihun denied it and explained that he only came to deliver mail sent under Hyunwoo's name. As he handed over the envelope, he casually mentioned it was from the Guild Establishment Council of the Korean Hunter Association, asking if our hero had established his own guild. Hanarin was surprised to learn Kim Hyun-woo had formed a guild. Then she excitedly asked when that happened. The hero explained that after acquiring a dungeon, he decided to test some new ideas. Also, he proudly shared the guild name, which was Guardian, meaning protector. Both Hanarin and Shihun exchanged glances and admitted that the name didn't quite fit his personality. Trying to change the subject, our guy wondered about the unconscious girl he brought earlier. Shihun told him she was still in the same condition, though not in danger. Hearing this, the protagonist worried it might be something serious, but Shihun reassured him that the nurse said it was just shock. Then Hyunwoo's frustration returned, because sitting in the mana circle for days still hadn't helped him awaken his mana, and he complained loudly that he didn't feel any difference. Hanarin, thinking for a moment, suggested they visit someone who could perform mana unblocking instead. Then Shihun realized she meant Nakagawa Yasumi from Japan. Confused, the hero asked what the hell mana unblocking was. Hanarin explained that the guildmaster of the Izanami Guild in Japan possessed a unique ability called mana unblocking, a special skill that worked like magical acupuncture. Additionally, it opened and stabilized the mana paths of hunters who couldn't use their energy properly, allowing them to rank up. Hearing this, Hyunwoo grew hopeful and realized that there might finally be a way to unlock the power he had struggled to awaken. But the hero felt disappointed when Hanarin suggested going to Japan to meet the person who could help him unlock mana. The idea of traveling felt too tiring for him, so he complained that he was too lazy to fly that far. At the same time, in Tokyo's Suganami district, a battle was raging inside an intermediate dungeon. Guildmaster Nakagawa Yasumi from the Izanami Guild was leading her hunters, but things were getting worse, and her team shouted for help as a powerful enemy relentlessly attacked. Then she shouted for everyone to dodge as a massive force swept across the battlefield. Amidst the destruction, a grim, mysterious man stepped forward, and the hunters froze in fear. Nakagawa stared at him, trying to understand who he was. When she asked, the man calmly replied that many had called him by different names. Tower climber, destroyer, even demon. After a moment of silence, he revealed his true name, Heavenly Demon. A notification suddenly appeared announcing that a new climber had arrived on the 9th floor via a passage in Tokyo, Japan. Seeing this, Hyunwoo was dumbfounded, and the mention of a climber immediately grabbed his attention. Shocked, he ordered Shihun to prepare the car immediately. Furthermore, he learned the situation in Japan had descended into chaos because of the climber's arrival. News spread everywhere about casualty reports, emergency evacuations, and sightings of a mysterious man causing massive destruction in Suganami. While rushing out, Hyunwoo felt uneasy as he still hadn't learned to use his mana and wondered if it was really okay to dive headfirst into something so dangerous. Shihun was driving and became confused just minutes ago. Our guy stated that he was too lazy to go to Japan for mana training, and the sudden change baffled him. Hyunwoo brushed it off, saying that some other business came up and he might as well go now. Shihun asked if Hyunwoo had a passport. The hero paused, realizing he didn't, but with determination, our hero decided that whatever happened, he had to reach that climber. At the Japan Hunter Association branch, a tense meeting took place. Officials were shocked to see Nakagawa alive, as the news had reported her death in a battle against the Heavenly Demon. Hearing this, she explained that she had survived by using a powerful artifact. Others discussed the Heavenly Demon's overwhelming power, as Nakagawa's supposed death had been broadcast worldwide. No hunter was willing to step up and help. Even with several S-rank hunters gathered, they realized the result would likely be the same. Civilian casualties continued to rise, leaving them powerless to intervene. In the back, Nakagawa's eyes caught something unexpected on the screen. A familiar figure appeared amidst the chaos. Hyunwoo entered the zone and immediately saw the Heavenly Demon ahead. When he tried to use his ability, the system refused to activate, indicating that it couldn't work on a climber. Realizing this fight wouldn't follow normal rules, the hero studied the figure before him, sensing something ancient and unusual about him. Suddenly, the Heavenly Demon lunged forward, swinging his sword with extreme force. Hyunwoo reacted quickly, and dodged, shocked by the incredible speed behind the attack. Then our hero examined himself and muttered in frustration at the sudden attack. But before he could think further, the Heavenly Demon moved again. Indeed, to the naked eye, it looked like a single slash. But our guy could feel that it was actually made up of dozens of overlapping strikes, each capable of tearing him apart in an instant. He realized that if even one hit landed, he would be shredded into countless pieces. Despite the danger, Hyunwoo continued to study the Heavenly Demon's rhythm and look for an opening, and quickly concluded that staying close might be his best option because if he was close, the Heavenly Demon wouldn't be able to swing his sword freely. Acting on instinct, Hyunwoo moved inward, forcing the distance to close. Seeing this, the Heavenly Demon paused slightly, amused by Hyunwoo's choice to move inward. Furthermore, the heavenly demon wondered about Hyun-woo's identity, remarking that on the previous floors, no one had ever managed to challenge him. Meanwhile, far from the battlefield, the scene shifted to where Nakagawa and Shihun watched the situation. Reports confirmed that the rift appeared around 2 in the afternoon. Moreover, Nakagawa explained that the event happened so suddenly, and they still had no clear way to measure the climber's energy levels. After this, Shihun recalled how our guy left the airport as soon as he landed, and as he looked at the feed showing Hyun-woo standing near the distortion, he wondered if the protagonist somehow sensed where and when the rifts would open. Back in the fight, the hero struggled to comprehend the power he was facing, wondering if what he was witnessing was even a skill. The heavenly demon declared that nothing he used, his sword, lightning, or strength came from the artificial skill system used by others. Hyun-woo's instincts screamed at him to dodge. However, he realized that backing off would only widen the gap, giving the heavenly demon the advantage to launch stronger attacks, so he stood his ground, grabbing the heavenly demon by the collar, standing almost glued to him in defiance. Hyun-woo unleashed the Tyrant Fist, but wondered if it had any real effect. Then the heavenly demon stood firm and his expression shifted to genuine respect. For the first time, he admitted that his opponent was not only interesting, but truly respectable. Plus, Hyun-woo's strength had forced him to unleash his full power, something he hadn't done since becoming a climber. Also, he called Hyun-woo a guardian, acknowledging him as someone worthy of standing before him. As the heavenly demon's aura increased, he decided to end it and prepared another attack, but Hyun-woo realized what was coming and ran forward, knowing distance would only bring death and determined to close the gap before the heavenly demon could strike again. But the heavenly demon declared that this was why he was called the thunder god in the sky, because his sword turned into a radiant storm, and the lightning became fierce too. Indeed, the Thunder God's sword struck down with unstoppable force. Shihun watched the scene in shock, unable to believe what he was seeing because the area hit by the heavenly demon's sword was completely obliterated, leaving no trace, and it was now clear to him too that the person fighting Hyun-woo wasn't just strong, he was a true monster. The heavenly demon noticed the hero still standing and acknowledged that his quick reaction had saved him. Also, our hero had managed to grab the heavenly demon's clothes during the attack and twist his body just enough to survive, though not completely unscathed. Then a strange energy began to flow through him and soon electricity spread throughout his body. The system activated, showing that Hyun-woo's mana had finally awakened. External mana forced its way into his body, rapidly increasing his strength, and pushed his mana level higher. The sudden surge confused him as he tried to understand what was happening. The heavenly demon looked at him, wondering if his luck would hold for a second time. Meanwhile, our guy realized something crucial, that the power and fighting style in front of him matched the legends he had read about. This man was not just an ordinary climber, he was the heavenly demon, the martial artist famous for reaching the peak through pure strength alone, the strongest of them all. The heavenly demon became impressed that he still dared to fight even after witnessing the power of the Thunder God's sword, and also acknowledged Hyun-woo's courage but called it arrogance, warning that his current strength was not enough to defeat him. The hero admitted that the heavenly demon was right. With his current capabilities, victory was impossible. However, he also noticed that the heavenly demon's lightning had damaged his mana paths, changing something inside him. Indeed, the protagonist recalled his time trapped in the tower, where he had practiced countless martial arts. Among them was a legendary technique he could never master, the Heavenly Demon Divine Art, and it was said to be the ultimate martial art, making its user the strongest in the world. Furthermore, he explained that in the past, he didn't truly understand mana flow or how it connected to specific techniques. He merely copied what he read in books, mimicking the legendary Heavenly Demon's moves without grasping their essence. Now Hyun-woo humbly admitted that for 10 seconds, the heavenly demon had been his teacher, and after learning from him, he decided to return the favor. Then he focused all his mana into a single point, and unleashed it in a single explosive strike, a powerful move he called the Heavenly Tyrant Kick. The kick landed with extreme force, and the system immediately informed him that he had defeated the climber Heavenly Demon Muwol, and his achievement points began to accumulate. Shortly after, another notification appeared revealing a mysterious system invitation with a countdown of 10 days, 3 hours, 8 minutes, and 11 seconds. The scene then shifted to the royal castle. Miryong was there recognizing the devastating power of Hyun-woo's final move, the Heavenly Tyrant Kick, and trembled with emotion realizing that the one who unleashed it was none other than her master, also the same person who once taught her martial arts, and the first person she truly served. Later, Miryong was seen discussing the guild's progress, through which she learned that only one area remained unconquered, the eastern dungeon controlled by the Wheon Guild. Once that was captured, the royal guild would possess all territories across China. Confidently, she declared that they would take it within a month. To ensure success, Miryong decided to personally join the mission because she remembered her promise to her master that when he returned to the world, she would have a place worthy of him. Miryong became determined to fulfill that vow to reunite with her master. After defeating the heavenly demon, the hero faced a chaotic crowd full of reporters demanding answers about his strength and sudden appearance in Japan. He silenced them and said that Shihun would explain everything, leaving his friend shocked and frustrated. Later, our guy relaxed in a room, commenting on how troublesome people had become. As he looked around, he noticed a girl, Hong Rin, who expressed her gratitude, calling Hyunwoo her savior. He recalled that she was the same girl he had rescued from the Aries Guild. According to her, she was an executive of the Royal Guild, and had been captured during a battle when the Aries Guild tried to take over a dungeon owned by her guild. Tortured while in captivity, she barely survived until our hero saved her. Although her story was tragic, Hyunwoo remained indifferent, not particularly curious about her past. Hyunwoo noticed a tattoo on Hong Rin's shoulder and asked about it. She replied that it was the mark of Royal Guild executives, representing their position under the sky. Furthermore, she added that the guildmaster personally gave it to her, saying that no one in the world stood above them except for the one known as the sky. Hearing this, Hyunwoo was dumbfounded and suddenly shouted for her to stop, but she became anxious, thinking she had made a mistake. Actually, the hero realized the real mistake was his own from the past, and the words she repeated were exactly the ones he had spoken long ago, things he desperately wanted to forget. The protagonist recalled his past in the tower when he foolishly believed that enlightenment through martial arts would help him escape. Back then, he was immersed in his own dramatic fantasies, imagining himself as someone born of darkness and solitude, completely influenced by web novels and anime. Ashamed of his old mindset, he cursed and realized that the very words he once spoke had now become a tattoo, spreading his dark history. Our guy was certain that the person responsible was his former disciple, the same person Hong Rin served in the Royal Guild. Annoyed, he told her to pass on a message when she returned, that her guildmaster should never come looking for him again. A few days after sending Hong Rin back to China, Hyunwoo appeared on a popular hunter show hosted by Lee Ho-young. The audience immediately recognized him as the famous hunter Kim Hyunwoo. Shihun was watching the broadcast, seemed surprised, and wondered why our guide decided to appear on TV, saying he didn't know what the protagonist was planning and whatever he did was his own business. During the interview, Hyunwoo explained that he came to make an announcement. He had established a new guild and was looking for members to join. Later, Shihun commented that Hyunwoo could have found guild members in a more normal way. The hero looked at the overwhelming response that followed and admitted he didn't expect so many applications. Shihun, uninterested in joining, reminded him that he wouldn't be helping. Hyunwoo simply accepted that. Hyunwoo started establishing the new guild and called on other guildmasters to help with basic setup tasks. They were surprised that someone of his status would ask them to handle such simple tasks, but our guy reassured them that in return they would be allowed to use his beginner dungeons when asked why he was establishing a guild. He explained that it was mainly to make money since he already profited from dungeon raids. Managing his own dungeon would only increase his income. Hearing this, Shihun found it strange and pointed out that Hyunwoo had already made a lot of money, but our hero brushed it off casually. Then the recruitment process began and many hunters lined up to join. However, Hyunwoo was extremely strict. He rejected a famous C-rank hunter despite his good track record, stating that he simply didn't like his resume. The crowd was shocked, wondering what standards Hyunwoo was using. He reviewed the candidates' stats, which were all D rank except for luck being B rank, and concluded that even if the numbers were fine, he couldn't accept someone with a bad attitude and an egotistical personality. Hyunwoo reviewed a new skill he received after defeating the heavenly demon and realized it could actually be useful despite his previous complaints about skills. The system, represented by Eve, congratulated his victory and explained that this time he was invited to upgrade his skills instead of just increasing his information level. Additionally, Eve mentioned that a new option had been added to his Information Authority skill, and notification performance had also been improved. At first, the hero seemed unimpressed, wondering what good a personality check upgrade was. But during the ongoing guild interviews, he found it useful. He tested the skill on potential recruits, seeing different personality types like opportunist, sacrificial, and friendship-based appear as results. Excited by this discovery, he quickly accepted all three types, relieved to finally find something practical. As long as his guild members did a good job, he was satisfied, especially since he didn't want to put in much effort himself. After finishing the brief guild interviews, Shihun questioned if such a fast process was really okay. Hyunwoo replied that he only chose people he could trust not to steal money, and that was enough for him. When asked if he checked their skills, the hero admitted he didn't bother, stating that he would be the main fighter anyway. As the two talked, Hyunwoo realized that none of the applicants were S-rank. Shihun explained that S-ranks were very rare, with only about 5,000 worldwide. The protagonist thought that sounded like a lot, but Shihun clarified that being in the top 200 was an incredible feat, as those hunters were recognized and sought after everywhere. Curious, our guy wondered what happened to names disappearing from the rankings. Shihun replied that they died. Hyunwoo was surprised, wondering how such strong hunters could die so easily. Shihun explained that they often lost their lives trying to obtain extremely rare S+ rank artifacts found deep within mazes. Every hunter had a natural limit on their growth potential, and these artifacts were the only way to break through that barrier, but obtaining them meant risking it all. Many died inside, and others obtained them through darker methods by killing those who already possessed them. That was how some hunters became feared killers in pursuit of power. He further explained that hunters who killed others for power were labeled killer hunters, and once they crossed that line, their names were removed from the official S-rank list, and they were expelled from the system entirely. Hearing this, the protagonist realized that the hunters sent by the Aries Guild were exactly the kind who relied on dirty tricks and violence to get what they wanted. Later, Hyunwoo visited one of the 4 beginner dungeons he had newly acquired from the Aries Guild called Manifestation Marsh. And now it was considered his property, and he intended to check things out personally. He casually stated that he would defeat the respawn boss and look around to see how profitable it could be. When he arrived at the entrance, the employee nervously recognized him and hesitated to let him in, muttering that the transfer process wasn't complete yet. Ignoring the awkwardness, Hyunwoo just walked confidently inside, declaring that since it was his dungeon now, there wouldn't be any problems. As he explored the dungeon, he felt something was off, and soon a stranger greeted him. The man introduced himself, saying he was indeed sent by the Aries Guild, but wasn't one of their people. Then he mentioned a notorious group called Pandemonium, a faction of hunters famous for killing their own kind. A group of deadly mercenaries named Pandemonium emerged, consisting of former top S-rank hunters taking high-paying assassination jobs. They carried a terrible reputation, and Hyunwoo heard the names of their prominent members. One of them, Anya, boasted about being a powerful magician and claimed responsibility for killing high-level targets. Hyunwoo stayed calm and asked blunt questions to test her, which only angered the group more. Also, Anya used a binding spell to try and stop him. But the situation quickly turned violent as the mercenaries rushed to attack. The scene shifted to Shanxi, China, deep within the hidden underground city of the Weon Guild. Miryong arrived, unimpressed, despite hearing it was one of the guild's main bases, where she faced Asura Demon Lee Do Cheon, ranked 82nd among S-rank hunters. His pride flared at her attitude, but she easily dodged his attack, leaving him stunned. Deciding not to waste time, she used a powerful technique to finish him off, wanting to see her master as soon as possible. Before leaving, she delivered a message he once gave her not to look for him. Although heartbroken that someone else met him before her, she found comfort in knowing he was waiting too. With quiet resolve, she vowed to prepare everything for his return and fulfill her promise, ready to take whatever was necessary for her master's sake. The scene switched, and Hyunwoo returned to the Hwarang Guild with a surprising guest, Anya, a former top S-rank magician who had fallen in with the Pandemonium mercenaries. Hanerin was shocked that he brought such a criminal, while our hero explained that he beat her teammates to death and captured Anya alive. Horrified, Hanarin realized those assassins were from Pandemonium, a group of elite former S-rank hunters known for always completing their kills. Furthermore, she couldn't believe Hyunwoo managed to take down such strong enemies, especially since his stats were never at their level. The protagonist admitted even he found his stats weird, but since the information screen confirmed it, he didn't bother questioning. Also, he joked that asking Eve would only lead to the usual lack of authority response anyway. Then, our guy told Hanerin not to worry about Anya, explaining that she was the type to value survival above all else, and if threatened, she would obey anything to save her life. Terrified, Anya constantly begged for mercy, promising that she could craft items and draw all kinds of magic circles without using basic magic. Hyunwoo checked her information screen, which listed her personality as survival-focused, confirming his assumption and deciding to give her a chance to prove herself. Since she mentioned she could work without using a staff, Hyunwoo gave her a set of powerful items, an S+ grade staff and an S+ grade robe taken from one of her fallen comrades. Hanerin became shocked after hearing the mention of the equipment's grade. The staff and robe he just gave Anya were both S+, something extremely rare even among top hunters. Before she could ask further, Hyunwoo told her to watch over Anya while he went out. When Hanarin asked where he was going, our guy simply replied to return the favor since he had received a gift, and it was only fair to give one back. Shortly after, he arrived at a heavily guarded area belonging to the Aries Guild. Guards blocked his path, warning that outsiders weren't allowed inside unless they were guild members. Ignoring their words, Hyunwoo calmly asked if Seonu-hook was there. Then he raised his weapon, a club called Justice, and declared that he came to give Seonu a gift and warned the guards not to complain later about getting hit by it, clearly ready to retaliate against the Aries Guild in his own ruthless way. The hero stormed into the Aries Guild building, swinging what looked like a harmless toy hammer, yet every hit sent people flying. Guild members panicked, completely unable to understand how they were being crushed by something so ridiculous. Our guy mocked them as they tried to resist, teasing that anyone standing in his way should be prepared to die. Fear spread quickly, and someone rushed to alert the branch director, Hook Seonu, that Hyunwoo was attacking everyone in the guild. Inside the office, Seonu was both furious and terrified, and realized that if word got out that the mighty Aries Guild was taken down by a toy hammer, their reputation would be destroyed. Worse, news channels were already covering the bizarre incident, calling it a national embarrassment. In the room, Seonu considered calling headquarters for backup, but he hesitated. If he did, they would see him as incompetent and question his leadership. Before he could decide, Hyunwoo casually walked into the office, greeting him as if visiting an old friend. Without waiting, the protagonist raised the toy hammer again, reminding Seonu of the damage compensation issue from earlier. Plus, he scolded him for sending assassins like Pandemonium, asking if Seonu wanted to die. Realizing resistance was futile, Seonu quickly changed his tone, offering cooperation and asking what Hyunwoo wanted for compensation. Hyunwoo told him to prepare 20 billion won, leaving Seonu cursing in disbelief. Later, Hyunwoo forced Seonu to agree to the massive payment and warned him to think twice before sending assassins again, or he would make them pay. Indeed, our guy ordered Seonu to call the hospital for the injured, showing he meant business. Seonu lost his cool and vowed to eliminate Hyunwoo, and also realized that he couldn't call headquarters for help without looking weak. With no other choice, he decided to go to China, bringing back a powerful fighter known as the Dragon Emperor, who ranked 5th in the world, hoping it would be enough to defeat the hero. The scene shifted to where on the 8th floor, Gei stood over the defeated Guardian and claimed the final city as promised. The Guardian pleaded and fought back weakly, but Gui advanced one step at a time, ignoring the pleas. With each slow step, the Guardian screamed and fell, and until the assault ended at the 5th strike and the Guardian was finished. Gai laughed that the victory felt more like a sweep in 5 steps rather than 10, and told everyone to proceed and enjoy the next floor. News exploded following Hyunwoo's assault on the Aries Guild. Live reports showed dozens of ambulances at Aries, and numerous guild members rushing to the hospital, while CCTV and social media spread footage of Hyunwoo using a toy hammer. People laughed, talked, and mocked Aries, and rumors said Aries might have to transfer dungeon rights to our hero. Shihun worried this could lead to criminal charges and detention. But Hyunwoo remained calm and reminded him that the guild threatened his life first and called his actions self-defense, downplaying the damage. Also, he remembered he had a paid teaching gig for beginner hunters from Japan, and planned to attend since they were paying him a large fee, so he wasn't too worried about the consequences. During his lecture, Hyunwoo suddenly received a system notification, and a new climber had begun ascending through the 9th floor passage. The countdown quickly ran out and the system invited him again. He was surprised another climber appeared so soon, especially since his information authority hadn't been upgraded despite defeating the heavenly demon. Eve explained that while his authority level hadn't officially increased, a small amount of progress had accumulated. Also, she offered to brief him on the new climber. This time, the climber wasn't alone, but brought along many companions. This made the hero wonder if it was similar to the rift monster he encountered earlier, but Eve clarified that it was different, because lower-level climbers like the Red Devil often attracted monsters from the rift, which the system created to help them end the world. However, those summoned creatures weren't true comrades. Then the hero confirmed with Eve that the approaching climber must be mid-level or higher. She replied it was mid-level, but stronger than most at that level. When he asked if it was stronger than the heavenly demon, Eve nodded. Our guy found that interesting, as defeating such a climber would likely raise his information authority. The scene then shifted to the Hwarang Guild. Hyunwoo walked in, kicking the door open again. This immediately annoyed Hanarin. She scolded him for using his feet and warned him he'd break them one day. Our hero laughed it off, saying he did it unconsciously, and explained that he just came to check on their progress. Anya nervously reported that she had almost finished fixing the magic circle, and this time it would be stronger and last longer. Hyunwoo praised her effort but suggested trying something new instead. Since her unique skill was teleportation, he told her to draw a teleportation circle. As she started, Hanarin suddenly realized and looked shocked to hear that teleportation was Anya's unique skill. Then Hanarin wondered why Anya never used her teleportation to escape if she had it all along. Anya nervously explained that her skill couldn't activate with her own manas, and she needed the support of a magic circle to use it, but Anya hurriedly added that she never really tried to run away anyway. Just then, in that moment, a system notification announced that the climber had arrived on the 9th floor located in Germany. Hanarin asked the hero where he planned to go using Anya's teleportation. He calmly replied that the destination was Germany. The scene moved to Leipzig, Germany, where the Schweizer Guild faced Gui. Surrounded by a large group of S-rank hunters, the guildmaster demanded Gai surrender, promising to spare her life if she did. Hearing this, Gai mocked their arrogance, amused by their confidence in numbers. No matter how strong she was, she couldn't withstand combined attacks from so many high-level hunters. Hearing this, Gai found their belief ridiculous. Furthermore, Gai declared that just as they had companions, she too would fight alongside her people. introducing herself as the embodiment of their deepest fears, master of everything imagined in the dark, the force that devoured courage, and the leader of the night parade of 100 demons, Hayaki Yagyo, the mystical god of chaos. Meanwhile, back at the Aries Guild, Hyun-woo checked Anya's progress with the teleportation circle. Anya reported that it would take another 5 hours to complete. Suddenly, Hanaran burst in with alarming news that a rift had opened in Germany, and added that reinforcements had been requested from him and the topic was already dominating global news. Hyun-woo scrolled through his phone, seeing headlines praising him as Korea's proud hunter and international hero, though he was visibly annoyed by the excessive coverage. Indeed, Hanaran secretly wondered if Hyun-woo was always someone who stepped up out of pure goodwill. Meanwhile, in Germany, Gui proposed a cruel game to the hunters in front of her, and announced that she would stay in the city for 24 hours. If anyone managed to defeat her within that time, she would end the conquest and retreat peacefully. Plus, if not, the assault continued, so she warned she would move on and destroy the next city if no one could stop her. The damage was immense. Around 20,000 civilians were reported injured or dead, and the deployed hunters suffered catastrophic losses. 32 S-rank and 68 A-rank hunters were wiped out, making this crisis worse than the Rift incident in Japan. Attempts to call top-ranking S-class hunters worldwide for help had mostly failed, leaving local groups overwhelmed. News broke that Kim Hyun-woo, the Korean hunter who defeated the Heavenly Demon in Japan, was being sent as reinforcement. Giving everyone a sudden spark of tense hope, Hyun-woo arrived in Germany via teleportation, surprised at how easy magic made travel. As soon as he landed, he kicked away a weak monster nearby, annoyed by its noise, then looked around, wondering where the real threat was. Meanwhile, thousands were watching the live broadcast online, flooding the chat with disbelief and excitement as news confirmed his arrival in Germany. Viewers couldn't believe it was true that the hero himself had come to face the disaster. Soon enough, Gui appeared before him, calling him the first challenger. Hyun-woo mocked her outdated way of speaking, asking if it was only her mouth that had aged. Gui coldly remarked that he talked too much. But Hyun-woo clicked his tongue and criticized her for turning the city into rubble, asking if she planned to take responsibility. She laughed at the question, saying she didn't know if he was being arrogant or just plain stupid. But the protagonist stood his ground and told her either way it wasn't her business. Then Guyi's tone shifted and she called Hyun-woo a fool, stating that she usually spared time for first challengers, but his attitude had crossed the line. Also, she recalled how the dragon once survived 5 steps, and another arrogant man, calling himself the world's strongest, lasted 7 steps. With a cruel smile, she decided to see how long Hyun-woo could endure. As she began her deadly march, every step shook the surroundings, and the hero immediately felt something was wrong because the mana around them was changing abnormally. Her steps weren't normal as they were expanding and crushing the whole space with enormous energy. He realized the steps themselves were weapons, and he had to stop her from taking any more steps. Our hero braced himself, gathered all his strength, and unleashed his strongest attack. But with each step, 4, 5, 6, the pressure grew heavier. And by the 7th step, his body trembled as his own mana went haywire, expanding against his will. The crushing force felt unbearable, like his body might tear apart. But he refused to yield and pushed forward. Gui watched with admiration and noted that he was stronger than the previous opponent who called himself the world's strongest. Her steps continued 8, 9 until finally the 10th step landed. She congratulated him sarcastically, saying he almost stopped 9 of her steps, but failed to block the last one. And the 10th step landed. With the opponent's energy pouring down on our hero, he could feel his body being torn apart. The climber was surprised by his ability to withstand the full force of her 10-step technique. She explained that because Hyun-woo was able to withstand her force, the damage to the area was minimal. Otherwise, on the previous floor, the entire city was devastated in 5 steps. The protagonist realized that Eve was right about this climber being stronger than the Heavenly Demon. The climber thought our hero had no energy left to fight and asked him if he planned to beg for his life or bravely wait for death. However, our hero just wanted to destroy her. The climber became serious for a moment and started laughing at our hero, calling him different from the others. But then she promised to give her all to this fight, using all the mana she, as the Chaos God, could use. As she began to summon her power, our hero realized that this time was different and much heavier than before. As the attack landed on Hyun-woo, he started getting injured. But then, the system notified that he had prevented mana expansion happening inside. The hero's durability level increased. Seeing it was at S level before, and he could withstand the abnormal damage earlier, the hero felt confident that with this level increase, he could definitely withstand the next blow. Just then, the system notified again that external mana was forcibly entering Hyun-woo's body, and his mana was being forcibly awakened. Suddenly, his mana rank increased too. The hero realized the same thing happened with the Heavenly Demon. He started smiling with joy, trying to come up with something to do. Suddenly, he remembered his tens of thousands of masters in the tower. All those characters from web novels, comics, and anime were just fictional characters combined together. but for the protagonist, they were his masters. From his masters, the hero had learned the Destroyer's technique. It was used by Asura to stop the demon god in mythology. The hero started focusing on his technique and saw energy summoning. The climber was shocked, seeing 4 arms created behind the hero. The monster realized that she was being overconfident and she needed to end the fight quickly. She started her steps, but the magical hand grabbed her leg before she could even count a step. She tried to escape and took a second step, but our hero grabbed her other leg too. The chaos god became angry and continued her steps. Her 10-step destruction skill was a stacking skill that didn't weaken just because she failed to take a step. She tried to stack it again, but the hero refused to let her complete. She realized that her power was no longer stacking and became angry that the hero could actually stop her. She proceeded with the 4th step, and energy poured down on the hero again. The climber started bragging about her power, thinking that her power must be crushing the protagonist. As she took the 5th step, laughing in his glory, Hyunwoo stepped on her leg and told her that her power was worse than the previous one. The Chaos God was too shocked to say anything. Our hero took his turn to show her what true power was like. He used the martial art Void Punch, and the climber was shocked seeing the absolute power in front of her. The protagonist used the Void Punch to end the game, and as the energy poured down, the mysterious Chaos God was dumbfounded in shock. Seeing her life end in an instant, suddenly the system congratulated Hyunwoo for capturing the mysterious Chaos God, and invited him. The hero was teleported to Eve, who welcomed him and thanked him for taking down the Chaos God. She informed him that as a result of the fight, his information authority had now increased from low to low mid-level. Eve informed the protagonist that she invited him here to notify him about the authority promotion. Hyunwoo realized that this was the first time he was summoned after taking down a climber, but his assistant just wanted to notify him as soon as possible. The protagonist realized that the room had gotten bigger than before. Eve explained every time he gained authority by defeating a climber, her room changed too. She added that his new upgrades also included the ability to decorate the room. By imagining the room interior and pressing a button, the hero could turn the space into his imagination. He pressed the button, and the room suddenly changed into the first floor of the tower, startling Eve. He pressed the button again, and the space turned into his room. Eve was amazed at the room's decoration because even though she knew how to use the button, she didn't have the authority to do it herself. It was her first time seeing a room on the 9th floor. The hero started pitying his assistant as she explained that she had been in this room ever since her creation, and she just slept on the desk when tired. With increased authority, Eve explained that the hero's information authority and notifications along with entry skills were also upgraded. With this entry skill, the protagonist could enter the space without an invitation once a day. This skill could be convenient for Hyunwoo, allowing him to ask about everything when he had something. Hyunwoo checked the information window after the upgrade, and noticed that his stats on the screen seemed significantly lower than his actual stats. With only low-mid authority, Eve could only explain some parts of it. She explained that the creator of the tower put a limit to stop people from getting too strong in the tower. Therefore, player stats could only increase to a certain level. However, this limit was only in the system, and the hero's actual stats grew far more than what the system showed. So while the screen stats were capped, the Guardian's body continued to grow. Hyunwoo was curious to know about the difference between his screen stats and actual stats. But with low-mid authority, Eve couldn't answer him. Then he asked about the reason behind his imprisonment in the tower, but she refused to answer that too. Angry and eager to quickly increase his information authority, the protagonist asked when a high-level climber would arrive, but all Eve could tell him was that it would end the world. Meanwhile, at the Aries Guild building in Shanghai, China, Miryong grabbed Hyunchun by the throat. She was disappointed in her opponent's strength because she found him interesting as a top executive of the guild, but now he was too boring for her. She threw Hyunchun out of the building and turned to Cheon-young. He told her that he had prepared the high-definition video of the protagonist's Germany Rift battle. Miryong watched the footage and saw the hero's Void Punch. She started blushing and giggling. She felt happy seeing her master was still as she imagined, and asked Cheon-young for details on her guild situation in the region. The assistant replied that the Royal Guild currently owned over 92% of dungeons, and the rest were also owned by those obedient to the Royal Guild. So the guild had complete ownership of all dungeons in China. Hearing this, Miryong felt relieved that her vow was fulfilled. Miryong fell into reminiscence, recalling her days with her master in the tower before leaving. She promised to save him a seat in a high place. Looking back, she now felt confident that it was time to see her master. Meanwhile, the hero received a reward list from Germany asking him to live in their country. Shihun read the list and saw Germany offering complete tax exemption along with a house, car, and guild office. Seokwang Hyung found these rewards weirder than those from Japan and asked about the Heavenly Demon's sword earlier. Seo Yun was annoyed to learn that Shihun got it instead of her. but the hero reminded her of the magic circle and item from the killer hunter he had given her. However, Seo-yeon was still curious why the protagonist kept going around stopping rifts, and her friends shared the curiosity. Hyun-woo replied he had no reason except that he liked beating people who pretended to be strong. In the meantime, the hero reflected on how the tutorial tower appeared randomly with monsters and summoned people in. He was forcibly summoned during the first round and was stuck there for 12 years. He had broken it more than 1,000 times from the first floor to the 100th. All the teammates who joined him left while he was constantly forced back to the first floor. Hyun-woo intended to find out the reason behind his confinement. After 3 rifts, his authority had increased from the lowest to low mid-level. The protagonist's friends noticed his long face and felt like he was worried about something, but he reassured them that he had nothing to worry about. 10 days after the mysterious Chaos God was defeated, Lee Hae-young, the host of Understanding Hunters, went live with our hero as a special guest. She asked for his comment on some things he said during past press conferences, but the hero replied that he said nothing but facts. Lee Hae-young took the answer enthusiastically and proceeded to her hot topic. She played footage where the hero was asked to explain his unique skills. The protagonist nonchalantly replied that he didn't even have normal skills, let alone unique ones, and all he used was martial arts he created in the tower. The footage ended and the host excitedly announced that because of this, the martial arts community had started to rise again. Then she introduced her 2 guests, martial arts masters, for advice. The hero turned to look at the martial arts masters with excitement. The masters bragged about their ability to use the Blue Dragon sword and practical martial arts, claiming it turned one's body into a weapon. The hero stomped his foot down in annoyance because they were using his name to sell their scams. He pulled the sword out to clarify the situation, and called out the scammers for using his name without knowing anything about martial arts. He reminded them that he was simply strong, and martial arts were not why he was a strong hunter. The crew continued filming as the hero proceeded to show his skills. He held the sword, and the martial arts master was surprised to see his attacking dragon stance. The hero told everyone to watch closely how he used the sword. He remembered the web novel he read and decided to try it. He swung the sword and released a blue dragon beam, shocking the entire crew. He once again reminded everyone that he was strong and warned them not to mess around using his name. The protagonist was about to leave when the girl at the computer desk spoke up. At first, he didn't recognize Anya with her changed face. He asked her if the work was acceptable, and Anya, terrified, answered yes. Hyun-woo made it clear that he hated his enemies, but he let her live because she was handy. He made it clear that he would treat Anya as a normal hunter. Anya hesitantly replied that it was great, and the hero reminded her to stay like that without betraying him or running away. He told her to tell him anything she had and left. During her 10 days working in the guild accounting department, Anya found the workload good, but she wondered if living like this was okay. Suddenly, a fax arrived regarding dungeon transfer issues. Meanwhile, at Incheon Airport, Chun-myung warned the branch that making a request to the Royal Guild was too risky. They thought that the hero took their dungeons and money, along with his dungeon control. Seonuhook lost his power along with it. He assured Chun-myung that he would do anything to kill Hyun-woo. Seeing the branch director, Chun-myung knew that he wouldn't back down. With the monopoly ended, Seonuhook didn't care if a few more dungeons were taken away. He had brought everything he had and was willing to give any dungeon, money, or artifacts to lure and kill the hero. The founder of the Aries Guild, Martin Brand, learned about Seonu transferring some dungeons to the guild. The assistant called it the branch director's mistake, but Martin only accepted mistakes if they were corrected. So he considered a mistake reported to him before being corrected a failure. The assistant apologized, but Martin assured him that Seonuhook was the one who made a mistake, and failures like him were not needed in the guild. The assistant now understood he had to correct the mistake, and while he did that, his boss planned to take back his dungeons. In China, Seonu stood outside the Royal Guild building. The guildmaster had invited him to see the face of the requester, and he wondered why that was, since Chun-myung was the one who contacted them. Seonu started wondering if making a request to the Royal Guild was risky. However, he stayed committed as long as it helped him get rid of his enemy. Just then, the guard invited him in, and Seonuhook smiled, thinking it was the end of Hyun-woo. Seonuhook walked through the gate where the guildmaster of the Royal Guild, Miryong, was sitting. However, when he walked through the gate, he was surprised to see a girl sitting on the throne. He bowed to her with respect and introduced himself. Miryong confirmed with her guest about the request to kill a person, but as Seonu tried to say the name, a sudden fear gripped him, warning him not to say the hero's name. But he knew that he would die anyway if he returned empty-handed. So he told the Dragon Emperor that he wanted Hyun-woo dead and promised to pay her 80 trillion won and 20% of Aries' Korean branch dungeons. Miryong exploded with anger hearing her master's name. She attacked Seonu, causing an explosion. Seonu sat trembling, confused, wondering why someone who owned the whole of China would react like that. Hearing her call the Hero Master, he begged Miryong to stop and told her she was mistaken. After confirming that Miryong thought Hyun-woo was her master and she had met him in the tower, Seonuhook realized that he had a way to get out of this. Seeing she was from Korea, he told her that Hyunwoo was not her master. He explained that all 158 towers were designated to different areas. The one in Korea only summoned people from Korea, while those in the US were divided throughout the states. Seonu explained that since Miryong was from Korea, she could never have met Hyunwoo because he was stuck in the Korean tower for 12 years. Miryong hit Seonu again, angry that he said she was mistaken. She assured him that she was not mistaken because she didn't complete the tower in China. Back then, she followed her father's orders to go to Korea and got dragged into the tower there. Seonu tried to convince her she was mistaken, but it only insulted the Dragon Emperor more for denying her master. Miryong built her whole appearance like what her master wanted. Her long hair, the mark of her master carved on her back, and even her name. By denying her master, Seonu denied her. The Dragon Emperor started to get angry and intended not to let him die peacefully. She decided to punish Seonu for trying to kill her master and denying her to save himself. Meanwhile, the hero and his assistant enjoyed TV in Eve's room. At first he thought his skill was pointless, but now he was catching up on all the dramas he wanted to see. Eve asked him to make her a PlayStation because she could only maintain the system but couldn't create objects. The protagonist made her a PlayStation, and Eve hugged him in excitement. Seeing her happy, he felt like he had a daughter. Then Eve proceeded to tell him something, but warned that she could also be mistaken. Suddenly the protagonist was teleported back to his friends. They found him completely frozen and not eating. Hyunwoo was in deep thought, recalling Eve's words that there could be a climber on the 9th floor he was on, but it was just a prediction, so she wasn't sure. Before the hero left the tower, 3 rifts had appeared. Usually they should disappear, but 2 rifts still hadn't disappeared, making her suspicious. Won-hyung asked to accompany the hero to Germany. Hyunwoo intended to return right after finishing the job, but Won-hyung wanted to tour the country. The hero believed the whole city would be in ruins after the incident anyway, but Seo-yeon informed him it was probably restored by magician class hunters. She explained that magicians with magic circles could quickly help the city, doing a year's worth of work in days. She added that magicians were the reason cities didn't turn into wastelands as monsters and rifts constantly appeared. The reason Hyunwoo's friends wanted to go to Germany with him was because of an auction happening the day after his award ceremony. They explained to him that the International Hunter Association was holding an auction in Germany this year. They wanted to go with him via teleportation because it saved them from getting on a plane. The hero agreed, and his friends assured him that he would like the auction because it handled strictly selected items. Hyunwoo learned that the Hunter Association thought the remaining rifts were due to their ranks. If Eve was right, then there were currently 2 climbers on the 9th floor. The hero's information authority didn't work on climbers, so he could find out who it was by checking everyone. However, that was too much work. The protagonist knew he needed to get stronger. The 2 previous battles had made him stronger, but they were only mid-level, and a high-level climber could appear at any time. Not realizing, he said out loud that he needed to prepare. Confusing Seo-yeon, meanwhile Chun-myung burned the contract, and assumed Seonu was probably dead since he hadn't returned. With the branch director meeting his end, Chun-myung thought about fleeing. With all evidence burned, he thought his money would be enough to keep him hidden, and assumed the office wouldn't bother looking for him, blaming Seonu. However, just as Chun-myung reached for the door, an assassin cut off his hand. The knight played with him and joked about missing. Chun-myung recognized the knights. Killer hunters under the office were knights made up of people in the top 40 rankings. He now realized that escaping was no longer possible. The knight cleared his confusion and told him that he should know why the knights were here. Chun-myung tried to run away, but the knight stabbed him with a knife. Another knight walked in, surprised by the quick kill, and the 2 proceeded to leave. The knight explained to his colleague that Seonu was caught by the Royal Guild, so they might not even have to deal with him. After he entered the castle, dense mana exploded from there, so the knights assumed Seonu was already dead. If he was still alive, they decided to deal with him when he returned. The other knight was surprised when his colleague informed him that 4 knights would deal with our hero, however realizing that he had dealt with 2 disasters. The knight understood the manpower needed to deal with him. He started bragging about powerful artifacts, but his colleague stopped him from revealing his secret rank. Meanwhile, the auction in Germany began. People kept asking the hero to take off his jersey, but the hero didn't care about people's complaints. Besides, people had accepted his fashion sense now. Even when he attended the award ceremony in casual clothes, not a single article mentioned it. Seo-yeon began looking through items at the auction and realized there weren't any S+ rank artifacts. However, our hero had an S+ rank artifact dropped from the mysterious chaos god he received at the award ceremony. He was confused, seeing no skills or modifications on the artifact. However, Hyunwoo didn't think he would make much money since the artifact was too small to be used as a weapon. He began looking through the description, and the whole low information authority thing made him even more curious. He started watching other items. The auction continued, and our hero checked the item description. The auctioneer announced Aslan's giant spear. The protagonist checked its description, but the whole no authority thing annoyed him, and he left the auction, so Hyunwoo decided to take a walk outside. Suddenly, someone knocked out the guard and attacked him. The protagonist saw the attack coming, and dodged. He continued to block the knight's attack, and threw him away. He was confused seeing the hunters. The knights told him they were here to kill him, and started bragging about their skills and rank. However, the protagonist was too tired of people bragging about skills. He threw a stone at one of the knights, knocking him out. He told them they always talked too much for someone so easily taken down, and this time he intended to punish them. Meanwhile, the boss received a report that the knights couldn't kill their target. He told his assistant to tell number 5 to ensure his mistake wasn't exposed. Seeing the fight, Martin Brand thought his knights should have already started the ambush or would join the fight. However, the assistant was worried that the knights faced a strong opponent and they lacked skills to fight. After learning who the knight sent for Hyunwoo was, Martin Brand reassured the assistant that everything was fine. Martin didn't think his knights would handle the opponent anyway. All he wanted to do was check how his artifacts affected the hero, and he had something else to check too. Meanwhile, the assistant informed the creator that the 2 climbers, Heavenly Demon and Miryong, had been taken down. The creator was surprised because he thought the Guardian would eventually end up as a sacrifice for the climber. Then he asked who the next climber was, but that hadn't been decided yet. The creator now became excited, looking forward to the next unexpected hurdle for the hero. Back home, Shihun saw the bag of artifacts the hero collected from the auction house. He mentioned how surprised they all were seeing Hyunwoo standing over the dead bodies. Fortunately, the security camera recorded everything. Unfortunately, the protagonist couldn't find out their identities, as they all killed themselves when he tried to interrogate them. Even the camera failed to capture their faces clearly thanks to cognitive impairment magic, and the hero ended up blowing their heads off, making identification even harder. The protagonist argued that he couldn't control his strength, but his friend knew it was just a one-sided battle. Hyunwoo was slightly surprised by the knights' combined attacks, but he easily annihilated them while trying out his new techniques. However, the protagonist believed he wouldn't find out the attacker's identity anyway, because they probably destroyed all records. Shihun then walked out, saying he needed to buy some souvenirs before returning to Korea. Hyunwoo took the weapon out of the bag. He picked it up and decided to check it. The first weapon was revealed to be Bjorg's S+ starving spear. He checked the hidden information, but most remained censored due to low authority. However, all the artifacts the attackers had bore the same name. Seeing the artifacts, the protagonist didn't think they came from the maze. The strange explanation and strange names made him wonder if they were all artificially created. However, he wondered if that was even possible. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find any information about its creation, which only made him think something serious was going on. So Hyunwoo decided to rethink the whole thing. The knights were from a different order than the hunters he had faced before. They knew about the hero's location and ambushed him with full preparation. He came up with 2 possibilities. The attackers were either sent by the Aries Guild or were mercenaries. However, the protagonist had no enemies other than the Aries Guild, so that was the only option. Then he turned his attention back to the artifacts, but realized there was no point. He decided that finding the person behind the knights was more important than the artifacts. The hero thought Seonuhuk was still after him and decided to deal with him for the last time. He went to the Aries Guild building and beat a person asking for Seonuhuk's whereabouts. The man trembled in fear and tried to tell the hero he didn't know, but Hyunwoo refused to take that answer. He knew that his enemy wasn't in the building and asked the employee about where he was. Seeing his anger, the man finally gave up and promised to answer his question. He told the hero that Seonuhuk left 4 days ago without notifying anyone, and he said he was going to Beijing, China to meet the Royal Guildmaster. Late that night, the hero asked his friend Shihun what he knew about the Royal Guild. Shihun explained that the Royal Guild now controlled all dungeons in China. The hero was shocked because he was told the guild only owned 50% last time. Hearing that now they had full control, the hero wondered if it was that easy to take over. Shihun explained that taking over dungeons was far from easy. Although Hyunwoo himself took dungeons on his own, there was a lot of trouble initially. But in China, force was all that was needed. The protagonist thought this just meant the strongest ruled, but his friend replied that China wasn't always like that. He added that initially all dungeons belonged to the country, so the transfer process was complicated. However, 3 to 4 years ago, it all suddenly changed. The rumor was that the one who changed the law like that was the Royal Guildmaster. All of this happened at the right time. The Royal Guild appeared right after the law was changed and started expanding. The hero deduced from that the Royal Guildmaster was already a big figure in China before the whole thing, but rumors couldn't be trusted. Hyunwoo started thinking about whether he ever discussed the outside world with his disciple, and decided to recall his conversations with her. He remembered Miryong kneeling in front of him, talking about who she was, but he just shut her up. The hero told her she was his disciple. She tried to resist, wanting to go with her party to survive, but he refused to listen. During training, when she stood in front of a monster, she begged her master for help, worried she would die. The hero assured his disciple that he wouldn't let her die and that he would protect her. When Miryong completed the tower tutorial, she didn't want to leave because she wanted to learn more from her master, but the protagonist told her she didn't need lessons anymore. She wasn't the weak girl she was before, and no one could force her to do anything, so he told her to leave and never forget her lessons. He told her that there was nothing except him above her, and everything was below her. The protagonist now realized that everything he said was nonsense. He tried to remember what the girl told him, but he couldn't recall because he just ignored it, realizing he couldn't remember much. He asked his friend for any further information. Shihun explained he didn't know much, except rumors saying the guild was like an empire. So the hero stood up and prepared to leave for Beijing, China. Meanwhile, at the Royal Guild Palace, China, Miryong slept on her bed reflecting on her life. It had been 4 years since the tower. It changed her because for the first time she knew how weak she was. When the tower broke her spirit, she met her master. Miryong lived like a doll and spent money as her father and the political world told her to. The master gave her affection. Unlike her father, who didn't care about her, Miryong's master taught her to stand on her own and save herself. With no forces left in China to oppose her guild, she looked forward to seeing her master again. She looked up at the sky, waiting for her master to arrive. At a hotel in Beijing, Knights 5 and 8 panicked as they were told to hunt down the man who killed their other comrades. They were afraid to face him, but they had no other choice as they had to prioritize their mission. They decided to stay in China to kill Seonu-huk first, but wondered why the boss ordered them to stop the hero. Number 5 and 8 knew the man they had to hunt was too strong, and Knights 1 to 3 would be perfect for him. There were 10 members in the Aries Knights, each numbered according to their strength, but that didn't mean those at the bottom were weak. Rather, their strength was enhanced by artifacts. However, they knew it was best not to mess with someone who killed 4 knights so easily. Suddenly, they felt an earthquake, and a man was smashed into the wall. The knight turned back to hit the intruder, but the intruder knocked him down too. The knight raised his sword to block the attack, but the attacker smashed his sword. He questioned them about killing Miryong. The knight was confused, and suddenly all swords pointed at his face. The man grabbed the knight's head and smashed him into the ground. Since the knights killed Miryong, whom the guildmaster was supposed to kill, the fighters had no choice but to capture them. The next day at the Hwarang Guild training room, Seo Yan told the hero that he shouldn't go if he didn't want to. However, the hero himself didn't go through a bad phase because his parents died when he was in his teens and he was too focused on surviving. But he became dark while in the tower, which wouldn't have been a problem if it hadn't escaped the tower, but the problem was that his disciple was spreading that darkness all over China. The hero saw the Royal Guild news, but quickly ignored it, focusing on dealing with Seonu-huk and returning soon. However, Seo Yan's concern was that teleporting to another country was illegal immigration, but the hero ignored her concerns, stating that he wasn't going on a vacation. While Seo Yan worried that he might cause new problems, the hero left via the teleportation circle, and Seo Yan worried that he might not handle things on his own this time. Then she turned her attention to the girl performing the teleportation and saw how tired she was from working overnight. She went to the girl to ask her about something. Meanwhile, the protagonist arrived at the Royal Guild Palace in China, and to his horror, his words to his disciple were written on the gate in bold letters. Suddenly, guards walked in and deemed him an intruder. The hero realized that he couldn't leave things like this, and took a huge jump over the wall, intending to destroy everything, and then kill Seonu-huk. He broke the board with his words on it. The guards called for backup. Hyunwoo ran towards the guard, recognizing his mask. Upon approaching, he was shocked to see them using his technique. It was all just a concept, but the techniques used by the protagonist were actual martial arts. He was surprised that his disciple had taught them everything. Realizing how wrong it all was, Hyunwoo suddenly stopped and began moving around using his technique. The guards saw the hero suddenly disappear and appear in front of them. He used the Demon King strike and sent everyone flying. However, this time he controlled his power so no one died. Suddenly, Miryong called the hero master as she walked behind him. She recognized his martial arts, techniques, and posture, and the gaze looking through her. She walked to him and asked the hero if he was her master. Hyunwoo spoke up and called her disciple. Miryong did everything for her master. She changed laws and people, created a guild, and the names she learned were useless. She did everything for her master, who was currently standing before her. She bowed to the hero, counting every day and second she waited for him. The guild master of China's largest guild, ranked 5th in the world, the Dragon Emperor, bowed to her master. Miryong took the hero to the throne and invited him to sit, seeing his disbelief. She thought he didn't like the chair and told him she would execute the person who made it. Hyunwoo was shocked at the girl's words and ordered her to stand still. He sat on the throne and saw its luxury. He wondered how much money was spent on it. He wondered why he was sitting on the throne, as he wasn't this type of person. But Miryong's obedient look was too much pressure for him. The protagonist wondered why this girl was like this, because their relationship wasn't like that. He only saved her in the tower and taught her martial arts. Up to this part, everything was normal. But all the lessons were one-sided, and he didn't care much about it after leaving the tower. He called his disciple to say something, but then stopped. Seeing her obedience, the hero started sweating, confused why she favored him so much even after he tormented her so many times. However, he stopped thinking much about it, but stopping Miryong from spreading his atrocious history to the world was still his task. Then he used his information authority to read her stats. Her personality showed as loyal, but seeing her extraordinary stats, he realized she wasn't normal either. Hyunwoo then told his disciple that he had many things he wanted to tell her, but asked about Seonu-huk first. Meanwhile, Seonu-huk lay crying in pain. As the hero noticed his wretched state, Miryong explained that she dealt with him for trying to assassinate her master, making the hero happily excited. The protagonist kicked Seonu-huk to wake him up. The branch director was shocked seeing the hero, and started begging him to save his life. He called Miryong crazy, which made her explode in anger. The hero promised to let Seonu-huk live, but only if he told him everything about Germany from the beginning. Meanwhile, at an underground bunker in New York, the knights received another mission, but they complained about being too tired. However, their boss tried to bribe them with an SST plus rank artifact that would help the 6th ranker aim for the top spot. The knights were excited to hear that they could raise stats by 2 levels. Raising levels was hard. That was why hunters went to mazes, but the knights couldn't believe their new artifact would raise it by 2 levels. So the boss decided to show them the artifact, which had never been revealed to the world before. At the Goguryeo Guild headquarters, Shihun asked his friend when they would go on another maze expedition. Seokwan replied that his last artifact was still good, so he was still uncertain about his new expedition. Seo-yeon wondered why Shihun was in such a hurry since he still had artifacts from last time. However, he felt he should upgrade his stats now. All their rankings had been pushed back because their stats were stagnant. Seokwan argued that they were just focused on maintaining the guild. However, Shihun felt smaller after being next to the hero. At the Royal Guild, the disciple led the hero to the Aries Guild assassins. Having finished his part, Seonu-huk asked if he would get to live. The hero assured him he would live, and asked the disciple about the prison in the building's basement. Miryong explained that the prison was made by modifying a D-rank rat dungeon. Countless man-eating rats swam there, and anyone above C+ rank would be immune to attacks. However, they would still be in endless pain unless they could escape. The hero decided to put Seonu-huk in prison for 30 days. He tried to resist, but the disciple followed orders and dragged him away. Hyunwoo picked up the ring dropped by the prisoner. Checking it, he found it was the same as the ones he found at the auction. Since the prisoners were from the Aries Guild, he refused to let them go. The hero then prepared to leave. The disciple worried that he would go outside and asked if he wouldn't lead her. The hero said he would discuss that with her later. She tried to speak, but he refused to repeat himself. He told her he would speak to her after dealing with the Aries Guild first. After the protagonist left, Miryong turned to her disciples and ordered them to kill any Aries Guild members found in the area. Hyunwoo took the ring to Eve. She checked it and realized that the ring wasn't an artifact, because those were made by bringing objects created on other floors to the maze after sorting them using various methods, such as their legends or storylines, or giving them skills and modifications. The hero wondered what happened to other floors if objects were taken away from them. Eve explained that those floors would simply be wiped from existence because climbers needed to destroy a floor to climb the tower. The hero then wondered what exactly the ring was. Eve believed it was a well-made copy made by a climber. The protagonist now wondered if the Aries Guild had any connection to the climber. He remembered Eve mentioning the possibility of 2 climbers on his floor, and realized that he could get a clue about the climber and ruin the Aries Guild at the same time. Then he turned his attention to the mess in the room and told his assistant to clean it up. The protagonist took the remote and took away the game console. Eve saw the console disappear and started crying. She begged the guardian, promising to clean the room and everything, and begged him to return the console. Meanwhile, at the Royal Guild, a hunter sneaked into the castle to rescue the 2 knights and eliminate Seonu-huk, but then Miryong sneaked up behind him, asking him if he was from the Aries Guild. However, she didn't care about that and decided to take all her anger out on him. She rushed towards the hunter and punched him in the stomach. Back home, the protagonist returned to his room after consoling Eve for deleting her saved data. He suddenly saw 2 hunters waiting for him in his room. His first thought went to Shihun, but realized he would be back by dawn because of a photo shoot. The hunters told him not to worry about his friends, but the hero told them they didn't have to come as he was planning to visit them. Suddenly the window broke, and the hero jumped out of it. The SS rank hunter threw a spear at the protagonist, but he caught it. He tried throwing it away, but it suddenly disappeared, shocking him. Suddenly the hunter jumped from behind and attacked the hero from above. Hyunwoo checked the spear's stats and realized it had the ability to return to its owner. Suddenly paper started flying in and trapped the hero inside. He looked up and saw the X-rank magician class, the highest rank hunter, flying in. The hunters were surprised to see the hero still smiling. They jumped to attack him, thinking he was just bluffing about his bravery. The protagonist was impressed by their speed, but he was still faster than them. They attacked with the spear, but he dodged it easily. He took his turn to throw a punch and threw the hunter away. The hunters used a cloud of smoke to blind the hero, and another one sneaked up from behind. The attacker successfully landed a hit, throwing the hero into a corner. The hero decided to use his uncertainty ability. The hunters were shocked to see him disappear, but then suddenly he teleported behind them and punched them into the ground. Hyun-woo had used his distortion conversion ability to quickly move within a moment. However, his opponent stood up. The protagonist laughed at his opponent, but he had used his ability too fast, and now his blood vessels were messed up. Suddenly a hunter attacked from behind, but our hero dodged. However, another one attacked from the front. One blew up his mana spears to disrupt Hyun-woo's movement, while the others stuck close to him to stop him from reaching the spear thrower. Our hero was impressed by the attacker's coordination. However, his distortion skill still needed time. The hunter ran towards Hyun-woo, but seeing him standing relaxed made him think it was a trap. He continued to move, intending to stab our hero. As he landed the blow, dust filled the air. The hunter thought he had succeeded, but then our hero grabbed him from behind and told his opponent about his durability. He smashed the hunter into the ground to give him a roller coaster ride. Shihun returned only to find his home destroyed. He worried about cleaning it up. Just then, Seo-yeon walked in, surprised at the mess too. However, she reassured her friend that the Hunter Association would pay for the damages, and there were no casualties. Shihun then showed her the footage on his phone. The video showed our hero throwing the hunters into the air and dropping them on apartments. Seo-yeon was shocked watching the video, but still felt relieved that people weren't reacting negatively. However, Shihun reminded her of the time the protagonist redirected all inquiries to him, and because of that, his phone was ringing off the hook. Forcing him to change numbers again, Hyun-woo left for Seo-yeon's guild to use the magic circle again, and threw his friend an artifact to cheer him up. Shihun saw the artifact grade and cheered in excitement. At Seo-yeon's guild, our hero read the news about Martin Brand. The hunter told the protagonist everything that Martin Brand sent assassins to kill him, and he was hiding in a secret bunker. Hyun-woo replayed the recording of the hunter spilling the beans. Anya finished the drawing, and our hero proceeded to teleport to the Aries Guild main office. Before going, he gave the phone to Anya and told her to give it to Seo-yeon. The teleportation activated, and the protagonist suddenly found himself in a dark cave. He was confused, wondering if Anya sold him out. But then Martin Brand greeted him from behind. Our protagonist played with his confidence and reminded his opponent of how he destroyed all the assassins. However, Martin Brand revealed that all the knights were just bait to find out the hero's identity, like him being the guardian of the 9th floor, shocking Hyun-woo. He checked his opponent's information authority and saw it was hidden. He was shocked to realize that the Aries Guildmaster was a climber. Hyun-woo found it convenient that he could solve all his problems at once. Martin Brand asked him if he knew the reason why he was summoned here. The hero told him he was just overconfident like all the others before him. However, Martin Brand replied that the place itself was a trap. The protagonist jumped to attack the opponent. An explosion occurred, but to his surprise, the barrier stopped the blow. Martin revealed that this barrier was different from low-level magic. Another explosion occurred, pushing our hero away. When he looked up, Hyun-woo saw all the weapons floating above him. The climber introduced himself again as the one who studies reason and covets fundamentals. To those without power, he was a divine object, and to those with power, he became their evil and defeat. To some, he was a protector who gave them the power they didn't have, but to others, he was a rootless destroyer. He was called Faker. The climber took all the weapons and rained them down on the protagonist. Although Hyun-woo dodged the attacks, he couldn't close the distance because of them, so he decided to use distortion conversion and disappeared. However, with Faker's barrier, a half-hearted attack would be wasted, so the protagonist decided to start with full power blows. He wanted to use Asura Invalidation Strike, but it would take time, so he decided to use something else. He closed the distance and landed his Extreme Heavenly Tyrant kick. The barrier shattered, shocking the opponent. He decided to use the kick again. However, to the hero's surprise, the kick failed and Faker grabbed his leg. Faker was surprised by the vast amount of mana used in an instant. He threw a punch and threw our hero to the other end. Hyun-woo was confused, realizing that he couldn't draw mana. Faker revealed that the room was in a mana-frozen state, because he had been watching our hero for some time, looking for the guardian of this floor. Faker began to explain how he found out through the hero's battle with the knights that he needed mana to use his skills. The hero didn't take Faker's explanation seriously, and ignored them as the mana restrictions applied to him as well. However, Faker could still use his artifacts. He threw artifacts at the hero. Hyun-woo tried to escape, but realized that he couldn't use distortion conversion. One of the artifacts hit his shoulder, and the opponent warned him about the S+ artifacts. The protagonist started looking for a way out. He closely observed his opponent for anything that froze mana and suddenly discovered the spear in his hand. The spear was covered by a barrier. But the barrier wasn't strong enough to stop the protagonist. He jumped up. The artifacts rained down, pushing him back. Hyun-woo then rushed towards the opponent and suddenly decided to use something he had read in the morning. He decided to use the Heavenly Thunder God kick without any mana. As the kick landed, it broke the barrier. leaving Hyunwoo's opponent open for attacks. Then he swung his arm and disarmed Faker of his mana-freezing weapon. Faker was surprised to see the hero break the barrier and decided to compete with skills. He pulled out the hero's holy sword Ascalon, which had the ability to borrow skills from other weapons. It was the legend, the hero who always fought with his comrades, granting the user a special ability. Suddenly, Faker gained numerous abilities. Faker rushed towards the opponent, the hero failed to dodge the attack and took a hit on his shoulder. The mana freeze became a problem as Faker landed hit after hit on the protagonist. To end it all, the climber drew his original weapon, the great sword, Gigantomachia. He landed the final blow, and a blinding light covered everything. As the light cleared, Faker was shocked. Seeing the hero still standing alive, the climber was impressed by the opponent's durability. But he was still confident that Hyunwoo had no time left, so he asked the hero for last words. The hero asked the climber why he was trying to kill him. Faker replied that it would be easier to make the floor extinct if he killed the guardian. Climbers destroyed floors to sit on the throne. The hero was confused, not knowing what that meant. Faker decided to end it. The hero knew that the high-rank artifact would land a fatal blow right now. Suddenly, he started smiling. The climber thought his opponent had gone crazy due to the shock of inevitable death. However, Hyunwoo wasn't buying time for nothing. He decided to use his authority. Faker was shocked as the mana freeze wasn't over, but then he realized it wasn't Hyunwoo's mana. As the hero gathered his mana, he thanked the opponent for revealing his fighting style, and unleashed all the energy. Blinding light covered everything, and suddenly the hero teleported to Eve's room. Faker started panicking as he didn't detect the hero's travel coordinates. Suddenly he saw the mana thread connecting coordinates. Seeing the thread not disappearing, he realized that his opponent was hiding in another dimension. Faker started feeling proud of himself for seeing through the trick and decided that it was the end for his opponent. Meanwhile, Eve's room was transformed into the tower's first floor. The protagonist's wounds had healed a bit, but were still severe. With no healing potion, Eve knew that a mana-freezing climber was bad news, and our hero only had 20 minutes left in the room. Just then, the hero announced that he had finished training, and he should leave now. Eve worried that he might get hurt again, but the hero assured her that this time would be different. Hyunwoo teleported back to the battlefield, and faced his opponent. He laughed at Faker for being so confident standing on his own grave. Faker scolded him for bluffing and threatened to finish him quickly. The hero took a deep breath to reflect on his martial arts training in the tower. Most of them were from novels, but what he trained wasn't martial arts, but to become a concept. In novels, they were called principles. However, in the end, he left without learning techniques. The problem was that the protagonist had many masters, but no one to ask. However, during the 6 hours he was in the system room, the hero achieved enlightenment. All his relentless training according to the methods in the book, and his battles against two climbers with different fighting styles all helped him reach the principle of movement. Suddenly, the hero deflected the opponent's attack, shocking Faker. As the hero continued to deflect all artifacts with his bare hands, Faker's confusion continued to grow. The climber saw no apparent change in the opponent, and his wounds hadn't healed. Even then, he no longer believed it was the same Hyunwoo from 6 hours ago. Realizing the opponent's unparalleled power, Faker knew he couldn't play around anymore and needed to end the fight. He drew his sword, thinking the hero wouldn't be able to deflect it, but Hyunwoo dodged the sword with his hand. He threw a punch and threw the climber away with the tyrant punch. Then he jumped on the opponent's head and tried to land another blow. However, Faker suddenly stood up and stood firm on his feet. He became angry, and the hero felt a strange energy. At first he thought it was mana, but then realized it was an artifact. Faker's sword, Gigantomachia, had the ability to bring out the stats of other weapons. He pulled out the great sword, thinking the opponent would be afraid, but the hero saw a child in him. The climber couldn't handle the sword's power, which meant he only had one blow to land. As he brought the sword down with all his might, the hero simply raised his hand and held the sword back. Faker was confused, seeing his attack stop midair as he looked closely. He was shocked seeing the hero lift the sword with just one hand. The hero jumped forward and returned all the opponent's power to him. With the first stance of movement, he landed the final blow, annihilating the opponent. Suddenly, the system notified the protagonist that he had taken down the unnamed climber. Hyunwoo noticed a bag and picked it up. The bag was Faker's subspace for storing items. He picked up the great sword and stored it in the subspace. The system revealed the sword's stats. However, the hero felt disappointed that he couldn't store infinite items. Hyunwoo decided to go back, but he had no clothes, no phone, and didn't know where he was. Just then, a knight opened the door to tell the guildmaster it was time for departure. However, he was shocked to see the hero standing alone in the secret room. Hyunwoo jumped on the knight and beat him down to take clothes and phone. 3 days later at the Hunter Association, the press talked about whether the hero would expose Shihun's attacker. Just then, Hyunwoo walked on stage and announced that he had found the evidence behind the knights who came to attack Shihun. He played the knight's recording, revealing that Martin Brand ordered the assassination. The whole press was shocked. The hero knew that the evidence could be doubted and assured everyone that he had CCTV footage supporting the evidence. as well as more evidence to support the claim. He demanded an explanation from the Aries Guild and left. 3 days later in Gangdong District, reporters gathered to question the hero about the disappearance of the Aries Guild branch manager. Meanwhile, the hero told his friends that they were in a tower where the 9th floor was Earth. However, his friends had a hard time believing that and the fact that their friend was a guardian stopping climbers. The hero asked them to just accept and ignore it, but he understood their shock and disbelief. Shihun now understood why he went around stopping rifts. And Seo Yan wondered if he went to stop climbers again this time. Hyun-woo replied to them that he went to sabotage the Aries Guild, but their guildmaster turned out to be a climber, so he caught 2 birds with 1 stone. The noise of the crowd started bothering the hero. Shihun offered to talk to them as his friend was still injured, but Hyun-woo preferred to go himself. The protagonist walked out, and when he opened his eyes, he was shocked to see his disciples bowing to him. The hero wondered why she was here all of a sudden, but his friends were even more shocked, as Miryong and her guards knelt before him. Miryong told her master that she prepared personal guards for him, but he ordered her to get rid of them. Seokwan realized that Miryong was the Dragon Emperor, the guild master of the Royal Guild. The protagonist was shocked to know his disciple was 5th among the world's S-rankers. When Hyunwoo taught Miryong, he was just lost in his concepts and thought he didn't teach them anything useful, and now he didn't know how she got so strong. Suddenly Miryong bowed to her master and started apologizing. She started crying about being unworthy and called her master the sky. Hyunwoo shouted at her to stop, and Knuckle rubbed her head when she didn't listen. He started getting frustrated. Shihun called him and then Miryong, but she exploded in anger. He then asked them about their relationship, and Miryong replied that she was Hyunwoo's disciple. The noise started annoying the hero more, and his disciple offered to kill them, but he forbade her. Just then, the hero received a message, and left for Seongnai District, because the Aries Guild finally responded. So, the protagonist met Coward, the co-guild master of the Aries Guild. Coward hated having to deal with the guildmaster's aftermath. He assumed that the hero took down the 6th Knight and the guildmaster, which spoke volumes about his power level, but due to the increasing internal issues at the guild, Coward had no choice but to solve the problems. He asked the hero what he wanted, assuring full compliance, but panicked when Hyunwoo demanded all dungeons be handed over. The protagonist reminded Coward that they could be completely wiped out if he spoke more to the press. He threatened to expose their secrets, and seeing Coward's face, the hero knew that his guess had hit the mark. He decided to show mercy and asked for 40% of the Aries Guild's dungeons. The hero walked out smiling and singing in joy. He saw Miryong bowing to him with her guards again, and told her to send them away. As he prepared to leave, Miryong saw Coward in the reflection, and ordered masked fighters to assemble. Meanwhile, Coward was suddenly tied up and kidnapped. When he opened his eyes, he saw the Royal Guild direct unit standing in front. The guards told him that he was the reason behind this kidnapping and threatened him if he dared to make the hero angry again. In the system room, Eve cried about being left alone in the cold tower. She couldn't even contact the Guardian because she couldn't call him for the next 5 days if a Guardian entered the system room. Then the hero asked her about the upgrades. Eve asked him to open the system window, and the hero saw his agility increased. Also, Hyunwoo now had an upgraded personality display, showing people's personalities with easy-to-understand displays. However, for more upgrades, he had to go beyond mid-level authority. The hero felt frustrated by the slow progress, and Eve suggested that maybe climbers could answer his questions. She explained that there were climbers who reclimbed the tower after reaching the top. Hyunwoo felt excited that those climbers might have some information about the tower. He remembered Faker talking about the throne, but the hero didn't know what that meant, so he had to interrogate reclimbers if he met one. Then he prepared to leave, but Eve asked him to give her a PlayStation before going. Meanwhile, at Gyeonggi-do, Hanam City, our hero was shocked to see his disciple had built him a mansion. He asked her how much money she put into the house, but Miryong told him it was nothing. The hero was confused as to why this girl showed such loyalty to him, and wondered if she had some hidden personality. However, the personality skill showed her as the absolute loyalty type. So he asked his disciple if she was a pervert, freaking everyone out. Back home, Miryong felt sad thinking her master was uncomfortable with her when the hero asked her if she had to go home. Hyunwoo assured her it wasn't about that, but she had responsibilities as a guild master. But Miryong insisted on staying by her master's side. As she walked out of the room, Shihun asked his friend why his disciple was giggling about him. Then he asked the hero if he was going to America as invited by the International Hunter Association. Hearing about the S-rank world ranking evaluation, Hyunwoo remembered it was probably about money, but since he was rich, he saw no need to go. However, Shihun argued that having a high number in world rankings was honorable. So the hero decided to go since he didn't have much to do. A few days later in America, the protagonist marveled at the huge land of the World Hunter Organization. His disciple offered to make him a park this big, but he shut her up. Shihun greeted Liam, a member of the Supreme Council, and introduced him to his friend. Liam greeted the hero, but as he reached his hand toward his disciple, he was met with fierce glares. Liam told Shihun that he was a fan of the hero's performance and asked if he had come to measure his rank. With Hyun-woo's affirmation, he proceeded to lead them to the evaluation. Liam opened the door to the evaluation room, where S-rank hunters were ranked. Then he pointed towards the sphere that compared a hunter to other hunters to rank them. However, our hero had expected a skill test. He proceeded to the evaluation. And as he placed his hand on the sphere, the results left him dumbfounded in shock. Seo-yeon bade goodbye to her hunters, and as she left, she thought about how the monsters seemed stronger and smarter than before. She quickly shook off the feeling of overthinking, and as she read the news on her phone about the third ranker attending the event, she worried that the hero would cause trouble again. A few days ago, Shihun and Seo-yeon had a meeting to delay the maze expedition for 2 weeks. Shihun argued that Won-hyung was okay with it too, and they needed a break. Seo-yeon asked her friend if he was going with Hyun-woo, and proceeded to end the meeting. However, before she left, Shihun unexpectedly asked for gift suggestions for a girl. Meanwhile, at the Aries Guild, Coward thought about the guild's plunging stock price and the disappearance of Martin's artifacts. He exploded in rage thinking about his biggest problem, Hyun-woo. The door opened, and Coward felt annoyed, but then he saw Mason from the High Council walking in. Mason explained that he was here because he had good relations with Martin Brand. He looked around and saw the mess making the situation at the guild clear. He offered to help Coward because he felt his friend would be sad to return to his guild's downfall. All he asked was for Coward to follow his orders. On the other hand, Hyun-woo stared at the screen and got angry, seeing it failed to rank him. Liam was embarrassed to see his system fail. Shihun proceeded to try and saw his rank drop to 172. Liam was confused seeing this problem for the first time. Just then, Miryong walked in bragging about her master being #1 in the sky. Hyun-woo felt sad that he came a long way for nothing, but Liam tried to cheer him up by telling him about commemorative food. The hero enjoyed delicious food while his disciple noted everything he liked. Suddenly, Tank, the third ranker, walked in. The protagonist was annoyed by the hunter's loud talking. Shihun warned his friend not to mess with this hunter as he was notoriously bad news. He explained that Tank abused his power to do illegal business openly. He should have been categorized as a killer hunter, but there were no official records for his killings. Just then, Tank recognized the hero from the news and told him to stop joking around, threatening to deal with him. The hero answered back with a witty remark. Tank was furious and swung his hand to hit the protagonist. However, Hyun-woo ducked and decided to teach the hunter a lesson. He threw a tyrant punch, smashing Tank into the wall. Tank stood up. Ji-hoon realized that the hunter's only talent was indestructible immortality. The third ranker picked up a giant slab and threw it at the opponent. However, the protagonist smashed the slab with just his elbow. Tank sneaked up and landed a hit on the hero. Liam saw the destruction and worried that this fight would lead to giving power to Mason's faction if it continued. Tank bragged about his strength, thinking he had defeated the hero. Just then, Hyun-woo stood up, claiming it didn't even tickle him. He then retaliated with another punch. Seeing the opponent take his hit, Hyun-woo was excited to finally have someone to test his martial arts on. He swung his hand again and knocked Tank down. Shihun was impressed to see Tank take his friend's attack like that. As the hero stood on Tank, he realized that defeating the third ranker would make him the third ranker now. Meanwhile, a master congratulated his disciple for completing the blood demon technique and mastering the madness suppressing blood orchid easily. The disciple had now completed the martial arts of the heavenly demon and the orthodox faction. And now he wanted to climb to the top and meet his first master. Seo-yeon read the news about the hero's fight with Tank. Seo-kwan tried to reassure her that their friend could take care of himself, but Seo-yeon worried that his strength could cause disasters. Seo-kwan recalled how Hyun-woo took down the corrupt hunter world, and understood that the hero had endless surprises. But then Seo-yeon asked her friend if he knew anything about Shihun, as she thought he had a girlfriend. Meanwhile, Shihun checked the gift he bought, and suddenly hid it as the hero noticed something. Liam walked right in, and Shihun apologized for the destruction. After the fight, the party was cancelled, and the relief team took Tank away. Our protagonist gained attention, and Liam persuaded him to stay at the hotel. Liam asked to talk to the hero. Hyun-woo agreed and told his disciple to stay. However, seeing Liam take her master away made her hostile towards him. Miryong quietly walked around the room and sat down quietly. Shihun wanted to get closer to her. But seeing her quiet made him realize it was unlikely. Seeing her happy around Hyun-woo made him think she was sociable. Shihun tried to strike up a conversation, and thought about what Miryong would want to talk about, so he asked her how she and Hyun-woo met. The Dragon Emperor agreed to tell him, but only if he told her what her master liked. Shihun started thinking about what his friend liked. Hyun-woo liked food when he first came out, but Shihun then told her that he liked money. Miryong told Shihun that they would talk later, and walked out, leaving him confused. Meanwhile, Liam and the protagonist sat down to talk. Liam tried to drag the conversation with small talk, but the hero got straight to the point. Liam explained that Mason, a top member of the association, received support from the US government, and top-ranking hunters like number 1, 3, and 6. Seeing Mason slowly making moves, Liam asked the hero to take their side. Hyun-woo returned to his friend and asked him about a bag full of gifts. Shihun tried to excuse that they were souvenirs, but the protagonist knew it was a gift. Shihun then asked what Liam wanted to talk about, and all the hero told him was that Liam told him he didn't have to do anything. Shihun was surprised to see Liam just casually meet his friend, but he also knew that his friend had a 5th ranker as a disciple and he fought the Aries Guild, so his presence alone made him a weapon. Shihun knew that if there were rumors of the hero taking Liam's side, even Mason couldn't ignore him, so the hero contributed to their politics whether he wanted to or not. Then he asked about Liam's offer, and the hero excitedly told him that Liam allowed him to use teleportation whenever he wanted. Shihun found it strange that Liam only offered that, but the protagonist told him that Liam even invited him to the top 50 party in 2 weeks, and told him he could use teleportation. At the Aries Guild headquarters, Coward informed Mason that the dispute was resolved, and thanked him for his help. But deep down, he wondered what the intention behind Mason's help was. To Mason, the story about Martin was just an excuse. But Coward refused to let his suspicion ruin things again, and decided to protect what he could right now. Mason knew that Coward had some questions. He took something out of his pocket and gave it to Coward. He asked Coward to follow his words and he could show him how to control guild members. Meanwhile, at the hospital in Washington, Tank struggled and was in pain. When he woke up, he saw Mason standing in front of him. He started shouting about Hyun-woo and how he could hurt his invulnerable body. Tank believed the hero used a technique similar to the martial god. Just then, the martial god walked in, surprising both Mason and Tank. He told Mason he had prepared everything, and now it was their turn. 2 weeks later, Liam looked out the window, waiting for the protagonist's arrival. However, Eden, the Sword Saint, believed that Hyun-woo probably didn't care, and Riley said that he could at least send a message. Liam knew the hero was built differently, and he must have thought that this appearance was necessary. Liam walked out of the room. Eden and Riley saw politicians constantly engaging in conversations. Liam talked to a few people, but then Eden dragged him away to show him something else. When he turned around, he saw the martial god standing in the crowd. Riley was surprised because he hadn't appeared since becoming one of the top 5. Liam felt a strange uneasiness. A man walked up to the martial god and told him he didn't expect to see him. The martial god grabbed the man's head and crushed it in an instant, shocking everyone. At the Hwarang Guild, Seo Yeon asked Hyun-woo to make the teleportation circle somewhere else as this was her guild. The hero thought there was no one in the guild but decided to change the place as Seo Yeon told him she strictly prohibited people from entering here. However, Anya felt sad that she would have to draw it again from scratch. She had a lot of work to do, and redrawing the magic circle would cost her 2 weeks of night work. But the hero assured her she could draw in the morning and he would find a replacement for her work. Anya went back to drawing excitedly, and Seo Yeon asked her friend if he had considered Liam's offer. Hyun-woo believed that the magic circle would be convenient to travel around the world as he was always on the move. He worried that his late arrival might cause casualties. Suddenly, someone banged on the door asking for help. Seo Yeon realized that the person her friend kidnapped was still locked up. She rushed to the door. The knight opened the door, but she slammed it shut. The protagonist opened the door and saw the knight shivering in fear, and promised to tell him everything. Hyun-woo was surprised to see a month of confinement only make him tremble. Meanwhile, at the party, hunters slaughtered bystanders, smashing them into pillars and walls. Liam guided civilians out, but seeing hunters bleeding to death on the ground sent chills down his spine. Suddenly, Tank jumped behind Liam to attack, but Eden jumped in with his sword and blocked the attack. Riley struggled to hold ground and urged Liam to run. Seeing corrupted hunters killing everyone, Liam asked them why they were doing this. The martial god told him that it was important for the destruction of the world. Just then, the hero walked in to save the day again. The hero arrived at the scene just in time and asked Liam to explain the destruction. The martial god walked to him and introduced himself, but the hero didn't know who it was. His disciple explained that the martial god was the #1 ranker. The martial god threatened to eliminate the hero, making him wonder if he knew him. But the martial god explained that all he knew was that he needed to kill the hero to climb the tower. Ian attacked him. The hero blocked the punch with his hand and wondered if his opponent was a climber. He used his information authority to check his skills and realized that his enemy wasn't a climber. The martial god added that he wasn't a climber yet, but he would become one. All he needed to do was leave his position to reach the destination, and he needed to kill the hero for that. The martial god rushed towards Hyun-woo and swung his fist. Just as the fist approached, the hero flipped on his hand and tried to kick the opponent. But surprisingly, the martial god blocked it. Meeting someone with martial arts, the martial god offered to go outside and blew the hero through walls with a punch. Miryong tried to follow them behind, but Tank blocked her way. The hero and his opponent faced off outside as he took his attack. He realized that the martial god's strength was no different from a climber. Realizing the stats, he decided to skip the climax. Mandalas surrounded the hero, and he suddenly felt mana rising around him. The Asura Invalidation Punch wasn't helpful for the protagonist as it took a lot of time. However, if it could stop the opponent from moving, it was worth it. 10-step destruction wasn't possible either, so to increase mana around him, the hero needed the person to stay inside the mandala. He gathered all the energy and rained it down on the opponent. As the Asura Invalidation Punch landed on the martial god, to the hero's surprise, he took it without a scratch. The hero was shocked seeing his opponent take the full force of his attack. The martial god expressed his disappointment in the opponent's strength and suddenly teleported behind him. He smashed the hero into the ground and told him that his moves were a mockery of martial arts. The martial god explained that everything about Hyunwoo's martial arts was wrong. His mana just overflowed through blood vessels and he was simply releasing it. The martial god revealed that he had been practicing martial arts for hundreds of years and the hero couldn't beat him. Hyunwoo was surprised, thinking his opponent wasn't human. He read his stats and realized that the first place wasn't possible with those stats. However, it was because of his item memory regression skill. The martial god revealed that he was a mortal human, but his skill allowed him to practice for an eternity. So he had practiced all kinds of martial arts by escaping his mortal existence temporarily. The hero stood confused. The martial god summoned his mana to show his opponent martial arts. The martial god sent our hero flying into the air with his attack. He jumped up and smashed him back into the ground with the Heavenly Demon Punch. The hero slammed into the ground, and before he could get up, the martial god kicked him down with a Blue Dragon Kick. He continued to bombard the hero with various chain martial arts. To the martial god's surprise, the protagonist endured all the attacks. Hyunwoo knew that his opponent was very strong, and anyone else would have probably died already. He thought about running away like before, but he knew that his disciple would become the next target. So he decided to face the opponent with his ultimate technique, just as he worried that his body wouldn't be able to take it. The system suddenly informed the hero that his durability would increase. The martial god decided to end the fight with his mysterious flying dragon attack, but surprisingly the hero disappeared. Hyunwoo jumped from behind, surprising the opponent with a Heavenly Demon Punch as he punched the opponent. The martial god realized that the hero's MP was now controllable. However, he was confused seeing it wasn't even an enhancement. The hero decided to return the favor to the opponent and returned the same chain martial arts. He knocked the martial god into the air with the Northern Heavenly Demon Art. The martial god was confused, and the hero explained that he put all his MP into his eyes to see the opponent use MP. Thanks to the martial god's extremely pure MP, the hero could easily understand his moves. The martial god was shocked to see the opponent learn skills just by seeing them. However, the hero wasn't just looking. With all his battle experience so far, the vast amount of MP he maintained, and his wide ki channels, the hero made it all possible, and now he decided to test out what he had learned. Meanwhile, seeing Miryong facing Tank, Liam worried that she, as a 5th-ranked fighter, couldn't win against the combined 3rd and 6th. Tank mocked Miryong's size and laughed at her, calling her master a dead meat. Miryong was furious. She had waited for a while to watch her master's amazing battle, but now she had to fight. Knowing that keeping the opponents alive would make them a threat to her master, she decided to kill them. Energy flowed through her body, and she smashed the 6th ranker's head into the ground with just a kick. Tank started shaking in fear. Seeing the girl staring into their eyes, Miryong turned to Tank and told him that he should die in the most painful way possible for committing too many sins. On the other hand, the hero and his opponent continued to exchange blows. The protagonist threw the martial god into the ground. Seeing the opponent fight better, the martial god thought it was talent. He was confused because mortals couldn't do what the hero was doing because only those who truly mastered martial arts could. The martial god decided to use all his power. Energy flowed through his body, and suddenly, he transformed into a demonic god descendant. The hero was shocked to see the opponent turn into a demonic form. The martial god claimed that the hero couldn't do anything like this, but he hadn't seen the hero. Hyunwoo reminded him that he wasn't the only one with masterful martial arts skills. He recalled the martial arts skill that the Heavenly Demon showed him to win. However, back then, the hero couldn't copy it, but now he understood the principles of martial arts. As the energy flowed through the hero's body, his opponent was shocked to see the Thunder God form. Meanwhile, Miryong stood on top of Tank, who was frustrated that his skill kept failing him against everything. Miryong smashed his head down and told him that skills didn't matter. Martial arts was what counted. Hyunwoo and the martial god continued to exchange blows, but after a few hits, the hero could feel his body breaking apart. The martial god knew he couldn't win like this. The hero realized that something was wrong with his Thunder God technique as it consumed too much mana and his body was about to give out. The martial god felt his opponent was stronger than ever. Hyunwoo faced the enemy, realizing he couldn't waste time. As he tried to do something, Hyunwoo noticed death aura creeping towards him. He hesitantly questioned the opponent for using a mass of mana instead of martial arts. However, the martial god didn't think that his opponent could handle this mana flow. He used the Heavenly Demon World Destruction and unleashed all mana outward, thinking the opponent wouldn't be able to withstand it. But to his shock, the hero blocked the death aura with lightning. The hero decided to teach the enemy some tricks, with a more improved technique. He unleashed the Thunder God reincarnation. Mana rained down on the martial god, and the system informed the hero that he had defeated the martial god, who was on the reserve list for climbing the tower. The system increased the hero's information authority from low to medium, and invited him to the system in 3 days. Exhausted from the battle, the protagonist took a breather. He suddenly noticed something on the ground, and upon picking it up, he saw it was the origin of Accheon. The system revealed that this artifact was the training secret of Accheon. He followed a master to become a climber, and with his help, he was able to learn several martial arts contained in the artifact. As the only one on the list, the martial god had to acquire the power of the maze to use his ability. The hero was confused, not knowing what the reserve list or the stone meant. Suddenly, Miryong rushed towards her master, and the hero finally breathed a sigh of relief after the victory, while a camera watched him from afar. Meanwhile, the creator was impressed seeing the unnamed climber and newborn reserve defeated by the hero. He believed that organisms only evolve when there is a crisis, when they struggle to survive. Their growth begins when they try to stay alive. And the creator believed that the hero was the crisis for the climbers. The creator wondered if the hero had ever met a top-ranking climber. His assistant replied that the one on the reserve list was almost considered his rival, but he also died before becoming a climber. The assistant didn't think the Guardian would ever meet a top-ranking climber because the old constellation gods were avoiding the 8th floor. The creator agreed, but he also believed that meant the hero would meet his end soon too. A day after the party, the world was in shock. News channels and social media were flooded with clips from the event, showing the gathering of top hunters turning into chaos. Reports spread that most of the strongest hunters had been wiped out, and only a few survived, many of them too injured to continue their careers. People everywhere were talking about the incident, and some admired the strength of the survivor who came out on top, calling him a hero and praising his unmatched power. The hero's name was seen all over news headlines and billboards around the world, making him the center of attention, while everyone looked amazed. The truth about what really happened was being covered up, and the media was shaping the story to keep the public calm. With so many powerful figures gone, the world's balance felt shaken, even if few were willing to admit it out loud. To distract the public from fear and confusion, the media turned Kim Hyun-woo into a global phenomenon, portraying him as a hero after the devastating incident. In the Guardian Guild, everyone quietly accepted this manipulation, knowing that if the truth reached the protagonist's ears, he wouldn't be pleased. So no one said anything, keeping the truth buried beneath the praise. Meanwhile, in America, Hanarin visited Hyun-woo at the hospital and checked his condition, asking if he was okay. The hero, still covered in bandages, replied casually, saying he was fine and winning the fight was enough for him. Hanarin was visibly worried. Also, Seo Yeon had expressed her concern earlier and told him that she would handle the hospital paperwork. Left alone, Hyun-woo felt the pain from the battle. Even though he had been treated, the after effects were strong enough to make him uneasy. Plus, he admitted to himself that a normal person would have been completely destroyed by such damage. Recalling the fight, he realized he still didn't understand much about the enemy's techniques. The idea of training again crossed his mind, perhaps returning to self-study through books or learning from someone. Then, an idea struck him that could help him grow stronger than before. 2 days later, inside Eve's space, Eve examined a mysterious object and wondered if it was the Accheon origin that belonged to someone named the Martial God. The hero confirmed it was called the Maze Stone and instructed her to find a way to destroy it. Eve immediately started searching and soon discovered a related clue. Furthermore, she explained that the answer might lie inside a maze dungeon, and the stone could be connected to a monster's mana core or something else entirely. But the clue indicated that a climber had to clear the dungeon to move to the next floor. Hearing this, the hero decided to investigate further. Before heading out, he asked Eve if he had gained any new skills. She opened his status window, showing updated information that Hyun-woo was 24 years old and currently in very good condition. Most of his stats, including strength, agility, and stamina, had improved, and a new ability called Psychology had also appeared. Curious, Hyun-woo asked how it worked. Eve explained that this ability allowed him to read someone's thoughts twice a day, but only if he already had access to their information. Hyun-woo noted that it wouldn't be very useful against other climbers, but still considered it a good upgrade. And Eve added that his notification skill could now almost perfectly detect the exact time and location of other climbers. Just as she was about to mention something else, the hero noticed what looked like a game console in her hand. When he asked her, Eve argued that she wasn't just playing games, even though that was what she was usually seen doing, and insisted that this time was different and said she had recently discovered something important. Miryong rushed into the hospital, repeating her master's name and checking Hyun-woo's condition, whom the hero reassured, saying it was nothing serious. Though Miryong remained worried his recovery wasn't complete, and asked about healers and artifacts and vowed to protect him if any harm came his way. When the hero asked about Seo Yun, Miryong explained that she had left via a magic circle to handle paperwork, and also warned that people were waiting downstairs. Hyun-woo realized it was reporters, and instead of avoiding them, he decided to hold a press conference right away. As he walked out, reporters surrounded him from all sides, shouting questions and calling his name. Annoyed, the protagonist told them to be quiet, pushing through the crowd as one of them blocked his way, and ended up with reporter John Michael criticizing Hyun-woo's behavior, and mockingly suggested that he should remind him how dangerous reporters could be. Then Hyun-woo was interrupted, as John loudly accused him of using the party massacre as an excuse to eliminate hunters he didn't like. Hearing this, Hyun-woo stayed calm and told him he wasn't finished speaking, but John continued to push, twisting his silence as proof of guilt. Growing annoyed, the hero told him to leave. When John claimed the rumors came from the internet, the hero demanded to know the source. But the reporter hesitated. Finally, Hyun-woo warned that if John didn't leave within 30 seconds, the interview would end immediately. Nearby, Miryong observed the situation and quietly ordered someone to deal with John. Sometime after the press conference, Shihun came across an article claiming that Hyun-woo had left reporters' questions unanswered, but surprisingly told one to leave politely. Shihun found it hard to believe, noting how calm and different Hyun-woo's tone sounded. Shortly after, the hero returned and Shihun greeted him, asking about his recovery. Hyun-woo stated he felt much better and mentioned he planned to visit a dungeon soon. Surprised, Shihun reminded him he hadn't hunted for profit in a while and wondered if he was after artifacts. Then the hero explained he simply needed to confirm something and wanted to join Shihun's guild for the expedition instead of using his own. Shihun pointed out that dungeons were dangerous and impossible to navigate without proper maps, agreeing it would be safer to go together. They decided to depart the following week, with Shihun promising to share the location beforehand. While talking, Hyun-woo gently patted Miryong's head, causing her face to flush red. After seeing her, the protagonist then inquired about someone else's well-being. While reflecting on the past, Hyun-woo recalled his time trapped in the tutorial tower. During that period, he had once tried to take in a disciple and then quietly disappeared, but the plan failed. Afterward, he gave up on the reclusive lifestyle. Then a young girl approached him asking to become his disciple. Since she was going through a childish phase of wanting to stand out, he didn't teach her any deep martial arts, only basic training to help her get stronger. He assumed she must be doing fine since there was no troubling news about her. Shihun noticed Hyun-woo was lost in thought again, and shifted his attention to a new article, and it reported that John Michael, the reporter who caused chaos during the press conference, had gone missing after resigning. Shihun recognized him as the man who provoked Hyun-woo earlier. Reading the news, Shihun felt uneasy and realized that the disappearance didn't match Hyun-woo's usual way of handling things. However, he made a mental note to treat the hero more nicely from now on. At the Aries Korean branch, the hero arrived to confront Seonu Hook. Seonu was already nervous as his company was on the verge of losing a 40% stake to Hyun-woo, and knew he couldn't turn to Mason for help, since the recent massacre scandal had tied Mason's faction in turmoil, and public scrutiny was closing in. To make things worse, Liam had started gaining political influence from the aftermath, putting Seonu in a tougher spot. When Hyun-woo walked in, he greeted Seonu casually. Getting straight to the point, Seonu tried to stall, saying he would negotiate to lower the stake loss. But the hero made it clear he didn't like wasting time and instructed Seonu to only answer yes or no from that point on. Hearing this, Seonu tried to object, but quickly realized the danger he was in. Then the protagonist played a recording where a desperate voice spoke. A man referred to as Number 6 begged not to be locked up again, revealing the cruel methods Aries used behind closed doors. Hyun-woo used this as a reminder of the company's guilt and warned that refusing his offer would only drag Aries into deeper ruin. When he asked Seonu if he still wanted to see this fight to the end, Seonu broke down completely and replied no. In Hanam City, Miryong oversaw a meeting regarding securing control over nearby guilds after removing external interference. Her subordinates reported that everything had been handled successfully and she praised their efforts. Her subordinates quietly noticed how much she had changed. Once emotionless and reserved, she now smiled openly, showing a softer side that surprised everyone. When she asked about the missing reporter, her men admitted there was unexpected interference, and further explained that while tracking him, he vanished, clearly abducted by someone. And the only clue left behind was a mysterious symbol stamped onto the table, almost as if the culprit wanted Miryong to see it. Finding this suspicious, she instructed them to investigate the mark further. Before dismissing them, one of her subordinates nervously asked how long she planned to stay away from her position. Miryong replied that when her master departed for China, she would go with him and leave the guild's management in his hands. The subordinate was stunned that Miryong, known for her cold distrust, finally acknowledged and entrusted someone. Deep down, she thought of her master and began to blush. In Cheonhodong, the hero preferred staying in his own home rather than moving to the place Miryong arranged, saying it felt more natural to him. When Shihun visited, he checked how Hyunwoo's deal with the Aries Guild went. The hero explained it went according to plan, and the Aries situation would be wrapped up within 2 weeks, though he still needed to handle a big job before that, one involving over 40% of the guild's ownership. Through his psychology skill, the protagonist picked up on hidden intentions, realizing that one of the Aries men planned to set up a suspicious device inside a dungeon on Mason's orders, and understood that Mason's influence was behind this. He decided to intervene instead of watching from the sidelines. At the same time, in the Phantom Sewer Dungeon located in Ujeongbu, Aries executive Oh Seok-hoon moved cautiously through the area, relying on his stealth ability to avoid monsters. Furthermore, he told himself that all he had to do was bury an object in the sand, just as Coward had instructed. Nervous but driven by the promise of promotion, he began digging. Suddenly, he noticed something unusual, someone's shadow near him. Looking up, he was shocked as Hyunwoo stood there, holding the stone. Hyunwoo arrived at the scene after 6 hours, finding Seonu-hook terrified and begging to be saved. His bodyguards were nowhere to help, making him more anxious. The hero mocked the panicking hunter, telling him not to overreact since they had already been lenient. Seonu realized how bad things looked, thinking Hyunwoo looked like the villain from the outside. Then he grew more worried, wondering how the hero managed to discover everything. The protagonist sensed his thoughts and remarked that since Seonu knew he was screwed, he should start begging for forgiveness. Seeing Seonu's frozen reaction, Hyunwoo decided to explain how he found out, revealing a stone linked to their methods and exposing that every member of Seonu's guild used the same technique. Then, without hesitation, the hero ordered him to spill everything he knew. Furthermore, he lifted the stone and threatened what it would feel like to crush someone's skull if Seonu didn't talk immediately. Some time ago at the Aries Guild, Seonu had been ordered to place an unidentified device in the dungeon Hyunwoo was about to take over. Curious, he asked what it was. Mason explained it was a detonator. Furthermore, he went on to describe a monster wave, a disaster from the early days of dungeon exploration when incomplete dungeons released monsters into the world due to poor management. Plus, Mason's goal was to trigger such an outbreak artificially, blaming the hero for negligence, so the world would turn against him and Aries could reclaim the dungeon. Mason had even promised Seonu insights on controlling a guild if things went well. Back in the present, Seonu finished explaining everything. Miryong found it strange, pointing out that during that time, Mason and the hero had no connection, so there was no reason for Mason to go that far. Unless Seonu was lying? Panicking, Seonu insisted he was telling the truth and admitted he found it suspicious back then too. But the hero quietly pieced it together, realizing Mason's supposed support had been part of a hidden agenda from the start. Mason sat in Washington and reflected on how the plan had fallen apart. He and his allies had used the Hasbound Guild to control multiple dungeons and recruited hunters like the Martial God to cause a chain of disasters. The original idea was to plant a detonator in Ares' dungeon and have a simultaneous massacre so the 9th floor would be destroyed. Everything was set except for the final step, but the Martial God failed. After Kim Hyun-woo escaped the tower and started fighting climbers, every single one of those threats had been eliminated, including Hasbound's forces. Mason admitted he had underestimated the hero and also misjudged how useful the Ares assistant would be. Though many pieces of the conspiracy remained, the key players had been stopped when the Martial God fell to the Guardian. Mason realized his original plan had failed, but remained calm, revealing a backup plan involving a hidden organization he had built. Also, he admitted that after finding the Martial God, he had focused too much on him, fearing his plan might collapse if left unchecked. However, after checking again, he found out the Martial God had grown incredibly strong on his own. This secretly excited him. Then Hyunwoo appeared and shocked Mason. Before this moment, Eve had investigated Mason's past, discovering that before the first rift, there were no records of Mason's existence. Moreover, he suddenly appeared afterward, engaging in several suspicious activities, and was closely connected to the Martial God. From this, the hero concluded that Mason was likely a climber staying on the 9th floor, and probably the one who told the Martial God the truth about the world. Eve warned the hero not to confront Mason yet, as his body was still weak. Despite the warning, the hero found Mason's location, and Mason was shocked by his sudden appearance, but Hyunwoo told him that how he got in didn't matter. Using his information authority skill, Hyunwoo confirmed Mason was indeed a climber. With the proof gathered, he declared the confrontation inevitable and ordered Mason to run, signaling that the real fight was about to begin. Hyunwoo launched an attack with a full-force blue meteor kick, striking Mason hard and sending him crashing to the ground. Mason tried to curse, but was cut off as the hero prepared to end the fight quickly. However, before he could move again, his body suddenly froze, leaving him unable to control his movements. Mason stood up unharmed, revealing that Hyunwoo had fallen into his trap. As our guy collapsed, he was shocked that his body wouldn't move and felt stuck. Then Mason mocked him for rushing in blindly without knowledge, saying he underestimated what was waiting inside, and further explained that he was supposed to let others deal with Hyunwoo, but now he would handle it himself. Then he introduced himself as the Word Master, the voice of the people. and revealed that the place Hyunwoo entered was a restricted zone, a space he had perfected over years. Within it, Mason held complete control, and no matter how strong our hero was outside, he couldn't win here. Hearing this, Hyunwoo quickly realized that Mason's power only worked within this range, confirming that this advantage was the key to Mason's confidence. The protagonist reflected that Mason was the only guardian he could never defeat. Inside his restricted zone, the Word Master's ability was nearly flawless, but outside this area, his power weakened significantly. Plus, the domain's range only extended about 200 meters, but luck was on Mason's side as our guy had walked right into it willingly. Confident in his victory, Mason pushed Hyunwoo back and taunted him to say his last words. The hero asked how many climbers existed. Mason found the question pointless, mocking him for wasting his breath before death and refusing to give a clear answer. Explaining that new climbers constantly appeared, and even he didn't know the exact number. Hyunwoo then asked a final question about the reclimbers. Mason explained that these beings were people who had once ascended to the level of constellations, but had fallen. Having lost their divine authority, they now sought to reclaim it by climbing the tower again. In other words, reclimbers were former gods trying to regain their power. Furthermore, the protagonist questioned Mason's explanation of former gods, but soon realized the conversation wouldn't continue. And Mason declared the talk over too, claiming he had shown enough mercy to a dying man. Hyunwoo agreed, calling the generosity excessive for someone condemned, and suddenly stood up, something Mason thought was impossible in the restricted zone. Seeing this, Mason became shocked and demanded to know how Hyunwoo could move when his power should have been sealed. Then our hero explained that he had seen through Mason's trick, revealing that the so-called Word Master ability was merely mana manipulation. Mason panicked and tried to force control, ordering Hyunwoo to stop moving, stop breathing, and even kill himself. But Hyunwoo resisted completely. Through experience gained from his previous battle with the martial god, Hyunwoo had learned to detect and dispel foreign mana entering his body's main channels. It was the same technique the martial god had used when blocking the Asura Invalidation Punch, though the hero admitted he was still mastering it and used his own skill. He unleashed a devastating strike, the Tyrant Phantom Kick. Hyunwoo assumed Mason wasn't anyone notable since no system notification appeared after the fight, leading him to believe Mason had escaped. Meanwhile, Mason, heavily injured and barely alive, had survived only by using teleportation. Despite his broken body, he reassured himself that he could recover. Reflecting on his backup plan, Mason recalled how his Mexican cartel expanded into a massive secret network, stretching across Europe. Confident that this power would allow him to rebuild from scratch, he studied himself. Just as a familiar girl arrived in front of him, reminding Mason to greet her, he noted it had been a long time since they last met. Hyunwoo presented an audio recording revealing Mason's true identity as the Word Master and his plans to destroy the 9th floor. After hearing the audio, Liam was stunned and realized the evidence could completely dismantle Mason's political standing within the International Hunter Association. Understanding its potential, Hyunwoo proposed a deal that Liam should manage the media to prevent further interference from reporters. In return, this would help Liam remove Mason's faction smoothly, benefiting them both. Liam agreed, noting that once the recording was released privately, Mason's faction would scramble to cover it up, but the power balance would shift once he became the top councilman. With the deal set, the hero prepared to leave, but Liam stopped him to ask about the recent mana explosion at Mason's mansion. Hyunwoo admitted Mason wasn't dead yet. Also, he and Miryong found no trace of him, proving he had escaped. Since no death notification appeared, our guy concluded Mason was still alive. Frustrated, he decided to stay out of politics, but insisted on tracking Mason down again, only to suddenly stop mid-sentence as something unexpected occurred. In another location, Mason met Hanaran. She asked Mason the reason for his fatigue. He mentioned dealing with some issues, casually bringing up Kim Hyunwoo, the man he called a nuisance who had delayed their underground operations. Hanaran reacted indifferently, urging Mason to reassure her that their growing organization, built under her support, could still control the world easily. However, she remarked that she pitied him for failing to realize the truth. Before Mason could react, she attacked him, driving her sword through his chest. Shocked and in pain, Mason called for his men, but no one moved. Then he demanded to know why she betrayed him. Hanaran coldly explained that betrayal implied they were allies, which they never were, and admitted she had once accepted his financial help to strengthen her plans, but killing him wasn't her intention back then. Over time, she realized his words and actions meant nothing, accusing him of lacking conscience and declaring she never built the Illuminati organization for someone like him. Mason insisted Hanaran was mistaken, and that he was the true leader of the Illuminati. She told him the true leader had been chosen long ago, and the organization was never his. It was created as a gift for someone else. As Mason stared at her in disbelief, she explained that he died for trying to harm her master, revealing her loyalty had never been to him. As she ordered his removal, Mason suddenly vanished, leaving her stunned by his escape. Realizing he was one of those with special abilities, She composed herself and silently vowed to her true master that no matter what battles lay ahead, she promised to support and protect him at all costs. A system notification announced that an unnamed climber called the Word Master had been found and killed in Mexico City. Eve confirmed his death, confusing Hyun-woo since the timing seemed off as the Word Master had escaped earlier in good condition. Hearing this, the hero wondered if the man died from his injuries or was killed by someone but quickly dismissed it, satisfied that his task was complete. Then Eve informed him that there were no more unnamed climbers, and as Hyun-woo prepared to leave, she excitedly requested the latest VR gear, claiming it would help her perform better. Hyun-woo reluctantly agreed before departing. Later he met with Miryong. Once everything was set and they were in the car, Hyun-woo instructed the team to move to the next destination, the Maze Dungeon. As the hero and Miryong sat in the car, he decided they would depart immediately, stating that the others didn't need to prepare since Miryong alone was enough. On the way, the hero checked his phone and saw breaking news spreading worldwide that Mason had been exposed as one of the key perpetrators behind the Hunter massacre and linked to the assassination plot against the martial god. The media confirmed that Hyun-woo's earlier plan had worked perfectly, and he no longer needed to worry about Mason's downfall. Soon after, the focus shifted to their next mission, involving the incomplete origin of Akcheon and the Maze Stone, which still showed 0%. Later, Hyun-woo and Miryong entered the dungeon, where they were immediately surrounded by enemies, although Miryong offered to handle them. Hyun-woo confidently took charge and unleashed his overwhelming power, wiping out the monsters. Their companions, including Seokwan, Seoyeon, and Shihun, were left stunned. Even though they were strong enough to fight such enemies together, the way the hero handled the situation effortlessly showed how far above them he truly stood. The porter thanked Shihun for letting him join as a porter. While the group's live broadcast from the dungeon garnered massive attention online, viewers flooded the chat, praising Hyun-woo's strength and joking that he deserved the title of God of War. Indeed, donations poured in as the audience watched his every move in excitement. Meanwhile, the hero noted that their progress was smooth, and the Maze Stone gauge had reached full capacity after clearing enough monsters. Furthermore, he wondered why Levin had seemed so worried earlier since the task turned out to be simple. Suddenly, Shihun pointed out they had only reached the 14th floor and worried about Hyun-woo going further without a map. The protagonist dismissed the concern and playfully asked Miryong, his disciple, if she could read maps, only to drop the question midway, when a porter offered to join them and navigate the upper floors. Hyun-woo reminded him that leaving would end his pay for the day. However, the porter insisted on going anyway since deep down he wanted to make money from the live stream and volunteered to lead the way, prompting our guy to allow him along as they prepared to head higher. At Hanarin's castle, a terrified man begged for his life as Hanarin interrogated him. He didn't know why he was being punished, but Hanarin accused him of angering her superior. He thought she was referring to Kim Yoon-woo as her teacher, but she wasn't, and began torturing him, demanding answers, while he cried that he knew nothing. Then Hanarin slapped him and called him a liar, reminding him that news about her teacher was supposed to be strictly controlled. The scene then flashed back to a moment in the ACC shared lounge. The same man had spoken to his superior, Hanarin's master, expressing doubt about how every article about the hero portrayed him too positively. Furthermore, he questioned why there were no rumors or scandals when reporters usually chased controversy. Hanarin's teacher warned him not to dig deeper and just follow the public narrative, explaining that positive stories about Hyun-woo brought more attention and safer results than critical ones. When the man pressed further, he noticed something strange, a tattoo on his superior's neck, and asked about it. Hanarin's teacher casually brushed it off, saying it was new while covering it up. Back in the present, Hanarin reminded the man of that conversation, pointing out that he now understood what that level of information control was for, and declared that protecting her teacher's reputation was part of her duty as a student. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to where the Maze Stone gauge finally reached full capacity. An assistant message announced that Akcheon's power could now be used once, though its efficiency was weakened due to the original owner failing to ascend. Then the protagonist decided to use the origin of Akcheon, known as the Sword of the Heavenly Demon, and told Miryong to handle the dungeon while he was gone. And he had someone to meet too. Then, stepping into a new and vast area, the hero realized the scale was larger than he expected, and began searching for the individual he came to find. On the 8th floor, a dragon lay defeated before Wukong. Stunned by the immense strength hidden in a mortal body, Wukong mocked the creature's shallow judgment, declaring his true identity as the great sage, Heaven's equal, who had once conquered the heavens. In another place, Hyun-woo suddenly faced the heavenly demon, who surprisingly recognized him. Confused, Hyun-woo recalled that Akcheon's ability was to take him to the past of an item to learn its martial arts techniques, but the heavenly demon's reaction suggested otherwise, hinting that this place wasn't just the past, it was an alternate dimension. When the heavenly demon asked if he had died too, Hyun-woo reacted with disbelief, demanding an explanation, but the heavenly demon ignored him. The protagonist tried to stay calm after being ignored, Piecing the situation together and further realizing that after using the origin of Akcheon, he had successfully traveled to the past to meet the Heavenly Demon. However, something was wrong because the Heavenly Demon shouldn't have recognized him, but he did. Remembering that the Origin's power was weakened, the hero wondered what kind of space he was truly in. Deciding to focus on his goal, he asked the Heavenly Demon to teach him martial arts. The Heavenly Demon rejected him flatly, refusing to cooperate. The hero persisted, but the Heavenly Demon grew annoyed, telling him to leave. Suppressing his anger, the hero admitted internally that it was understandable that no one would want to train the person who killed them, and tried one last time, asking to at least see a few moves. But the Heavenly Demon cursed him again, finally losing patience. Hyunwoo snapped back, offended when the Heavenly Demon mocked his past words about becoming a 10-second teacher. Then the hero challenged the Heavenly Demon, provoking him to face that bullshit talk again. The Heavenly Demon remained calm, noting that Hyunwoo's mana presence had grown stronger since their last battle. Then, the hero taunted the Heavenly Demon, reminding him of his past defeat and challenging him again. However, the Heavenly Demon confidently replied that losing wasn't an option anymore because Hyunwoo couldn't kill him. Refusing to back down, Hyunwoo insisted they could test that right now. Then the hero attacked to prove him wrong, but the Heavenly Demon dodged easily and struck him down. Hyunwoo was stunned, realizing he couldn't even track his opponent's movement. Indeed, the Heavenly Demon noted that he was faster and stronger than before. When Hyunwoo tried again, the result was the same, and he was defeated effortlessly. Confused, the protagonist wondered why the fight felt completely different from the past encounter when he could at least fight back. Then, the Heavenly Demon explained that during their previous battle, his power had been restricted by a limit, and further revealed that both of them were climbers at the time, and such restrictions bound his full strength. When Hyunwoo questioned this, the Heavenly Demon continued, explaining that climbers in the tower weren't ranked by raw power, but by their achievements. Whether they were heroes saving worlds or villains destroying them, the tower made no moral judgment. Instead, it merely measured accomplishments and assigned rank accordingly. The protagonist quickly grasped that once a climber reached the mid-levels, their strength was capped. The Heavenly Demon acknowledged his understanding and explained that his combat ability had once been on par with a top climber. But in the tower, his strength was restricted due to lack of achievements, just like when they fought before. Without warning, the Heavenly Demon ended the conversation and told Hyunwoo he would demonstrate martial arts moves, since he was bored, but only if Hyunwoo could kill him. Though abrupt, the hero accepted the challenge, stating he would only beat the Heavenly Demon half to death, since killing him would defeat the purpose of learning martial arts. Furthermore, the Heavenly Demon told him to fight with everything he had and not worry, because dying here didn't mean dying for real. Confused, Hyunwoo asked what he meant. The Heavenly Demon simply replied that he would need the experience to learn. The battle began, and the protagonist experienced his first death. Miryong told the protagonist's friend that the hero disappeared when he touched the Heavenly Demon's sword. He looked at her, and she looked like someone abandoned their puppy and chose to ignore her, as that was how she was whenever Hyunwoo wasn't here. Suddenly, he saw two masked men, and as they were spotted, they left immediately. He cried that he couldn't even rest in his place without interruptions. Then he decided to return as soon as the house was rebuilt. Meanwhile, Miryong looked at a bag and heard some voices coming from it. Curious, she leaned towards it, and the voice told her she could have some power too. Miryong was confused, and inside the bag was the Master of Demons, the mysterious Chaos God. Back to the Heavenly Demon and the hero, where they were in a battle. Not even a battle, the hero was getting beaten up by the Heavenly Demon as he was thrown away. He asked the Heavenly Demon for some martial arts tips, as he had died 100 times in this dimension. Before our guy could do anything again, the Heavenly Demon informed him that all his attacks would be useless against him. The Heavenly Demon was someone who couldn't give up on martial arts even if he had some disabilities. He was invincible. The protagonist stood up, saying that there would be a day when he would be defeated by him. The Heavenly Demon took it for granted and called it bluffing, but our guy decided to focus. He focused on defeating him. Then he decided to run towards him with all his power aiming at him. The Heavenly Demon was about to dodge, but noticed a difference. He kept running even after getting killed. Meanwhile, in the protagonist's mind, he knew he wasn't someone who gave up no matter what he had to do to win. Although he heard the Heavenly Demon's mockery of him, he couldn't be stopped. The Heavenly Demon realized the place they were in wasn't real, but a space where those who failed to climb the tower waited for another chance. In this area, death didn't happen, and the system removed the meaning of being alive or dead. Usually only the original owner could enter, but Hyunwoo somehow made it inside, which the Heavenly Demon found hard to believe at first. At first, the Heavenly Demon thought Hyunwoo's request to learn from him was ridiculous, and planned to just tease him. He set a harsh condition and intended to refuse earnestly, treating the whole thing as a game. After killing our guy many times, around 100 times, the Heavenly Demon felt a strange change. The repeated losses no longer brought satisfaction in the same way. Instead, he saw the hero's eyes shift from anger to awe, That reaction confused him, so he stopped to take matters seriously and started teaching with everything he had, no longer holding back. The heavenly demon kept killing the protagonist over and over again and enjoyed it at first. After 200, then 400, then 700, and then 1,000 defeats, he broke Hyunwoo's moves and expected him to never get up. Every win felt satisfying, and he also mocked Hyunwoo's weakness. But the hero kept getting up even after thousands more deaths. The heavenly demon noticed something strange. A small, growing anxiety he hadn't felt since becoming a climber. After killing him nearly 3,000 more times, that anxiety became clear because the hero simply wouldn't give up. The refusal to quit unsettled the heavenly demon and sparked a dangerous respect. Angry and determined to end it, the heavenly demon vowed to destroy Hyunwoo so he could no longer stand. But in the end, the hero talked back and stood up once more, proving he wouldn't be finished so easily. Wukong saw the blue lion arriving, and sarcastically asked why he took so long. The blue lion brushed it off, saying he had completed his task. Then Wukong complained that it had been 3 months since he defeated the lizard guardian and wondered about the others. Soon the white elephant and the eagle joined them. Explaining that they had finished their parts too, one cleared the west and the other handled the east. Wukong mocked them for taking 5 months to complete such simple work, even though they held powerful ranks. Hearing this, the blue lion replied that Wukong's fame came easily, while their recognition was only for being the terrifying 3 demon kings of Shitwoling, known for monstrous deeds. Blue lion for killing a mythical beast with his tusks, white elephant for invading a kingdom and eating its people and king, and eagle for wiping out thousands of troops. Despite their fearsome reputation, Wukong accused them of making excuses for being slow. Then Wukong told the others to plan ahead before climbing again, and divided the regions. He would take the south, blue lion the north, white elephant the east, and eagle would move west. Furthermore, he ordered everyone to finish their tasks within 2 months as he had other business. The scene switched to the administration bureau, where team leader Ma called Shihun with an urgent warning. A disaster alert stated that a catastrophe would hit Korea in 3 hours, and they needed Kim Hyun-woo's help immediately. Meanwhile, back at their place, Miryong sat down sad and stared at the sword. Time here wasn't measured by days, but by how many battles happened, and the battle continued. Hyunwoo mocked the heavenly demon about a move being fake. The heavenly demon replied with tired shock, noting how many times he had killed him already. The heavenly demon had defeated the hero 5,000 times, and couldn't understand how the hero kept fighting without resting or losing hope. Especially after Hyunwoo's progress was reset around the 200th death when the heavenly demon used the Thunder God technique. Yet Hyunwoo's eyes still shone with the same fire, and he kept coming back, throwing attacks and teasing the heavenly demon every time. The heavenly demon growled that Hyunwoo was a mad dog, which our guide happily took as a compliment. Then the heavenly demon's emotions shifted. At first, the anxiety he had long ago faded, then it turned into respect. He recalled rising from nothing to reach the peak, meeting many warriors, and often breaking their spirits by destroying the skills they trusted. However, this one, Kim Hyun-woo, kept coming back no matter how many times he died. The hero died and lived again. The heavenly demon started teaching properly and explained that to perform true distortion conversion, you had to follow 3 clear steps. Martial arts wasn't about flashy tricks, but about the root, the footwork. How the power of thunder rested inside your mana and shaped that power into a reliable form. Furthermore, he warned that copying moves by watching wasn't enough. Thunder had to be contained in the warrior's own energy, and shaped into a basic form that worked in any fight. The protagonist continued training through countless deaths, for example, after the fight recorded as the 800-second fall, and then the 84/23rd, and noticed each attempt was different from the last. Little by little, he learned that this repetition and steady focus was the true strength of martial arts. After countless deaths, the hero reached the point where the heavenly demon instructed him to destroy the very form he mastered. From this point on, every technique and flow of energy inside him would move naturally with his body. Through thousands of repeated deaths over 10,000 times, Hyunwoo finally grasped the truth. His mana now flowed evenly through every channel in his body, shaping itself into thunder. Each movement carried layers of techniques holding the fierce stance of thunder. The god's skill with limited energy and his control became perfect. The heavenly demon acknowledged this and explained the final stage. The protagonist had learned and broken the thunder god form. Now he had to create his own martial arts. Previously, Hyunwoo would have brushed off such advice, since all his old teachers were illusions, and his training always stopped where the answers ended. But now he understood with full awareness and determination. Our guy stepped forward at the heavenly demon's command, ready for what came next. In the American Association control room, everyone scrambled as evacuation efforts fell into chaos. Officials estimated about 10 minutes before disaster struck. At first, they didn't panic because Kim Hyun-woo was their primary responder. But then disasters also appeared in Thailand and Mexico. And finally, one was detected in Korea. There were now 4 simultaneous disasters and only one Kim Hyun-woo, so the team asked how each country was handling things. Thailand and Mexico had called in major guilds and top-ranking hunters, while the American side prepared its own heavy hitters. The priority was the local disaster since the hero lived in Korea. The trouble was he couldn't be reached as he had been away for about a month, and keeping that secret wasn't feasible anymore, with no idea when he might return. Shihun and his team decided they couldn't wait any longer and had to act together. Finally, Shihun turned to the Dragon Emperor and asked what she would do next.